This is the story of Kang, the cowardly dog. One day, out of nowhere, he, along with half the population, got transported to a dungeon. Everyone else? They got these OP skills ready to dominate. But Kang, he got stuck with a useless skill, resurrection. And let me tell you, that skill, it was nothing but a curse for him. He died more times than he could count, got smashed, got chopped into pieces, burned to death. Hell, one time he even got smashed by this goddamn thick goblin. And to make things even worse, his only family, his sister, is... Guys, please smash that 4,000 likes and hit that subscribe button if you're new. If you want to support me, I know you got this. I thank you all from deepest bottom of my ass, the deepest bottom of my heart. Now let's continue. It all started on that fateful day. Tomorrow was New Year's Eve, and like always, Kang came home after getting rejected by yet another company. And of course his sister, like always, started scolding him, asking, "Why the hell can't you get a job? For how long will I have to take care of you?" Kang had enough of all this. He was depressed, and to make things worse, he was also drunk. His head was spinning, so he just went straight to bed, even while his sister was still scolding him. As he lay there, he started to wonder why he was such a loser. He slowly fell asleep, thinking, tomorrow will be better. It was midnight, New Year's Eve, when suddenly a creepy voice murmured in his ear, startling him awake. The next thing he knew, he was in an endless white room. Before he could comprehend what was happening, words started appearing in front of his eyes. Suddenly, that same creepy voice welcomed Kang and informed him that the tutorial would begin shortly. Kang, unable to understand what was going on, questioned if someone had kidnapped him in his sleep or if someone was playing a cruel joke on him. Fear gripped him, but then he remembered that he had been sleeping. This realization brought him some relief. He must be dreaming. Thinking that he was just dreaming, Kang became happy. After all, he was already very depressed in real life. So finally having a dream felt like a small escape. But suddenly the same voice interrupted his thoughts, telling him that he was about to enter stage 1. To clear it, he would need to reach the destination point at the end of the bridge. The voice also warned that if he failed to complete the task, he would be killed. Kang started to grasp the gravity of the situation, but he still couldn't understand which bridge or what depth the voice was referring to. Suddenly, he was teleported to a dark cave. As he looked around, he got shocked. He noticed the ground beneath his feet creaking ominously. In front of him were several narrow stone bridges. He wasn't alone, many people were standing around him, but just below them, molten lava bubbled menacingly. One wrong step, and it would be the end. The sight of the lava shocked Kang to his core. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. It was just a dream, right? But the sensations were so intense, it didn't feel like any dream he'd ever had. He began to question the reality of the situation. Who were all these people? What was going on here? Looking around, he saw that the other people seemed just as shocked as he was. They were all standing there, bewildered and scared. Kang couldn't help but think, what kind of stupid dream is this? As he was trying to make sense of everything, a familiar voice called out to him. Kang turned to his left, and to his shock, he saw his sister standing on the same bridge. She was terrified, crying uncontrollably. The sight of his sister in this strange place filled Kang with even more shock, and the first this he said to his sister was, "Why the hell are you in my first dream of this year? This is ridiculous." This made her sister more shocked, and she replied, "I should be the one saying this. What is my brother doing in my dream?" She was still scared and confused, beginning to wonder if this really was just a dream. Everything felt too real. But Kang wasn't ready to listen to his sister's fears. In a serious tone, he said, "Don't act like this is your dream," because it was clearly his. But his sister only got more furious. She yelled back, asking if this was really the time to be arguing about whose dream it was. The heat of the lava and this sensation was too real to be a dream? And the bigger question, was it even possible to have such a natural conversation like this in a dream? But Kang, being a bit of a dumbass, he explained that a brain can be easily tricked. People always say they can't feel pain in their dreams, but that is a lie. Kang had experiences where it felt like he was really pissing, only to wake up and find that his blanket was safe. Hearing this, his sister got really annoyed. "Good job, very good job saying something so embarrassing in front of your sister." But Kang shrugged it off, saying it didn't matter. It was his dream, after all. With that, he began moving forward, determined to see where this bizarre experience would lead. After hearing this, Ju-hee was shocked. How could her brother be so dumb? She asked Kong where he was going, and Kong, slowly balancing himself and with a taunting tone, responded, "Didn't you read the system notification? It clearly said we have to go to the other side of the bridge to clear the level." He continued, "Well, I guess since it's my dream, an NPC like you couldn't know that." Hearing this, his sister got even more annoyed that Kang called her an NPC. She explained that she had also heard the notification, but asked Kang if he wasn't really scared. What if he fell from there? Kang dismissed her concerns, calling Juhi stupid because, after all, it was just a dream. He explained that even if he fell and died, what difference would it make? But before Kang could finish his sentence, a shadow fell in front of his eyes. Someone, a human trying to move forward on the bridge above him, slipped and fell. Kang watched slowly as the person plummeted down and then saw them burning in the lava below. As the unfortunate soul fell into the lava, he started screaming very loudly, burning right in front of Kang and his sister. The person's body melted before their eyes. Rotten, burning smell, creepy, both of them, and seeing this, Kang's lungs seemed to stop working. After that, Kang and his sister didn't say anything for a while. They just stood there, watching the person die slowly and painfully. Kang's face was a sight to behold. After a moment, his sister asked, "What were you saying?" Kang's face was worth seeing. He shivered and tried to speak, stuttering. The scream just sounded a little too realistic, right? I'm not scared at all." But he was so scared that he couldn't even speak properly. Seeing this, his sister sighed. His sister then crouched down and told Kang, "If you're so scared, then bow down and crawl forward like me." Saying this, she started moving forward slowly. Kang was clearly very scared. He still shivered, trying to save face, saying, "Who was scared? I wasn't scared." But then he thought, Juhi's idea isn't bad, so he decided to bow down and crawl. The scene shifted, showing that some time had passed. Many people had moved forward, while many others had fallen. But Kang and his sister were still slowly making their way forward. Although Kang's sister was scared, she didn't show it to her cowardly brother. She asked Kang, "What does he think happened to them? Any idea?" Kang, still in denial, insisted that it was probably just a very realistic nightmare. Kang's sister replied, "He is still stuck on that? Kang should have already realized by now that this isn't the case, right? Does Kang really think a dream this realistic can exist?" She continued, speaking in a very serious tone. "There's definitely something going on, something they can't even begin to imagine, and if they die here, maybe they die in real life too." Hearing this, Kang couldn't hold back any longer and started crying very loudly. For so long, Kang had been trying to be strong, but finally he broke down. He shouted, You witch! I was trying my best to ignore it. So why do you keep bringing this up? I'm stuck here, frozen in fear." The thought that if he died here, he could die in reality too scared him so much that he couldn't move. He started shivering uncontrollably. Seeing this, his sister thought to herself that Kang must be the most unreliable older brother in the world. Kang finally just lay down there, paralyzed by fear. He started shivering even more, saying, "I'll just rest here a little before continuing." His hands and legs trembled with fear, but he tried to change the topic. He forced a smile and said, "You know, the possibility still exists that this is just a dream, and maybe when he wake up, everything will be gone." But before Kang could finish his thought, the same voice echoed around them. It announced that a set amount of time had passed since the start of the tutorial, and that no player had completed it. As a result, the difficulty would now increase. As soon as the voice stopped, a loud crackling sound started. Hearing this, Kang and his sister became very scared. Suddenly, the bridge behind Kang started breaking apart, not just his bridge, but everyone's. Seeing this, everyone became very scared and started running. Half of the people fell while running, while the other half kept going. But Kang, already terrified, became even more scared and couldn't move. His sister stood up and shouted to Kang, "Run fast or you'll die!" Kang finally managed to get up and started running. His sister was ahead of him and Kang was trailing behind, still very scared. He kept repeating to himself, "It's okay. The bridge isn't too narrow. If I don't trip, I'll reach the end. Just look ahead. Focus on the path. Just keep looking ahead." Saying this, he kept running as fast as he could. Finally, after a while, he saw the end of the bridge. Seeing this, he felt a surge of happiness. He thought that as soon as he reached the end, this nightmare would be over. But suddenly, he heard a crackling sound. He looked to his left and saw that his sister was also about to reach the end. But the ceiling above her was breaking apart. He called out to his sister loudly, but it was too late. At that moment, something inside Kang awakened. His brotherly instincts kicked in, and he jumped from his position. He landed on his sister's bridge, and with a burst of speed, grabbed her. Without hesitating, he jumped from there, determined to save her. Then we see the bridge beneath them start to crack, and finally Kang with his landed on the end of the bridge. If they'd hesitated even a second longer, they'd have been done for. No doubt about it. Before they can even catch their breath, that same voice echoes through the air again. It congratulates them on clearing stage 1 of the tutorial, which is the first of a total of 8 stages. At the same time, the notification informs them they've leveled up. They've temporarily awakened their powers, which will fully awaken when the tutorial is over. Kang don't pay much attention to this notification, though. Kang just lies there, lets out a sigh of relief, and says he can't even move a finger anymore. But Juhi, she was reading that system notification real serious, curiosity written all over her face. But Kang shouted, "Forget all that. You're not even gonna thank me for saving your life?" Juhi casually muttered a thank you, but Kang couldn't help but feel a little confused. Just a casual thank you, really? Juhi, on the other hand, was confused. What the heck is this temporarily awakened status window? In front of her was her status window. Her level was 1, her strength was 7, agility 12, vitality 6, magic power 13. But the most interesting part? Her skill was calm, which explained why she was so calm in this crazy situation. But when Kang heard the word system window, he lit up. Is this the same system window I'm thinking about? Even though he was dead tired, he somehow managed to open his system window, and boy, oh boy, his skill was resurrection. But before he could really check it out, he woke up screaming, drenched in sweat. He sat there silently for a while, taking it all in, realizing he was back in his room. It was morning. Was that really a dream, he thought? Was it? After a while, it's revealed that this strange news has spread all over the world. Almost half the population had the same dream, being on top of a lava bridge and having to complete some fixed level. The whole world's in chaos, but there's one thing in common. Every single person who had the dream was between 18 and 40 years old. After a while, Juhi comes bursting into Kang's room, screaming her head off. Both of them, nervously and in a panic, start babbling about what had happened. Kang, barely catching his breath, starts firing off questions. Juhi had appeared in his dream. He almost died. And what about that status window? Juhi, just as flustered, starts asking her own questions. They begin arguing. Juhi was almost going to die, and Kang had saved her life. They go on and on about how realistic it all was, talking so fast that neither of them can understand a word the other is saying. Juhi finally gets fed up and screams, "At least let me speak first." Kang, already riled up, snaps back, saying that Juhi is the one interrupting. "Let me speak first!" Well, it's just typical brother-sister bickering. They keep going at it until they both give up and retreat to opposite corners of the room. After a while, their stomachs start growling with hunger. They decide to eat first and then sort everything out. While they're eating, the internet is going nuts. Everyone's talking about the end of the world, realistic dreams, shared dreams, apocalypse theories, you name it. The two of them sit down to eat, and finally, they manage to talk to each other without all the yelling. They start to realize that what they experienced wasn't just a dream. They had actually met and talked to each other, for real. It wasn't just something happening in their country either. Seems like people all over the world had the same dream. But Kang reads some strange news. Apparently, people who died in that dream didn't actually die in real life. According to the reports, 4 out of 10 people died in the dream, but nothing happened to them in reality. But Juhi wasn't so sure. She says that even though they didn't die, the experience was so realistic that if they had fallen into the lava, the feeling of dying would have been so intense it could have ruined their lives. Juhi even read online that the people who died in that dream ended up admitted to mental hospitals. They were so traumatized. They continue eating in silence, but then there's a loud noise outside. Kang goes to check it out, and what he sees is pure chaos. People have gone mad. They're stealing food, some are carrying God's posters and marching down the streets, and others are convinced the world is ending. Thieves and robbers are going wild, looting everything in sight. The world is in shambles. Juhi knows she can't go to work like this, and Kang, well, there's no way he's going out to look for a job. Inside, Kang is actually kinda happy. Finally, he doesn't have to worry about finding a job. He even starts thinking maybe the world really is going to end. Then Kang asks Juhi if she's tried opening her status window in the real world. Juhi shakes her head and says no, but when she does open it, there's a message that reads, In 4 years, 364 days, 17 hours, 3 minutes, and 13 seconds, a disaster will strike. A disaster that will end the world. Hearing this, Juhi starts panicking and asks, "What do we do now?" But Kang just shrugs and says, "The world's gonna end in 5 years, what's the point of stressing about it now? Better to stay home and figure out what's going on with this tutorial guy." Juhi thinks for once Kang's actually making some sense. Meanwhile, the world slowly begins to calm down. The police start catching the thieves, and people begin to return to some sense of normalcy. Night falls, and everyone goes to sleep. Kang drifts off as well, but as soon as he closes his eyes, that same voice welcomes him back. The voice asks if he'd like to see the explanation and instructions for basic interference. Kang, already annoyed, says, "Skip all this and just show me my status window." The system complies, showing him his status window. Kang's still at level 1. His strength is 8, agility 9, stamina 8, magic power 14, and his unique ability is resurrection. Kang doesn't know if his stats are any good because he's only seen his own. The only thing that stands out is his magic power, which is higher than the other stats. He figures he's probably going to be good at magic, but when he checks his unique ability, resurrection, he gets shocked. He smirks and says, "This smells like an overpowered cheat ability." Kang checks the details of his resurrection ability. It says his resurrection rank is Z. After 24 hours of his death, he can come back to life. If the resurrection location isn't specified, it will take place at the last sleeping location. But there's a penalty. Kang's level will decrease by 1, and all his abilities will be reduced by 50% for 24 hours. However, in the tutorial, the resurrection penalty doesn't apply. Kang can't contain himself. He starts dancing around. He's got a god-level cheat ability. He thinks to himself, "Finally, I'm going to be able to get out of this pathetic loser life." But he had no idea what was going to happen to him. The scene shifts, and we see Kang wielding a big hammer, trying to fight an ugly goblin. He's swinging with all his might, trying to take down the goblin, but the goblin dodges his attacks easily. The objective of the second stage is to kill all the goblins, but Kang isn't able to take down even one. After struggling in front of the goblin for some time, he finally kills it, but the only reason he managed it was because he launched a surprise attack first. Goblin blood was pouring from its head, and Kang's hand was shaking. His whole body was covered in that disgusting blood, and Kang can't believe it. He's actually killed someone for real. The sight of it makes Kang feel like vomiting. He turns away, walking slowly, but he doesn't realize someone is waiting for him. A damn perverted goblin was stalking Kang, watching him with a drooling mouth. Kang got shocked to see the goblin in front of him. This goblin isn't like the others. His name is Goblin Millet, and he's big, thick, and juicy, ready for some action. He's got a 2-meter-long weapon ready to insert into Kang's body, a meat chopper in his hand. Seeing this, Kang is terrified. He was already struggling to beat a small goblin like a chicken leg piece. How's he gonna take down this monster? In fact, when Kang noticed that 2-meter thing, he got terrified, thinking, "No matter what, I don't want that thing inside me." But the thick guy had something different planned. He suddenly started laughing maniacally, saliva drooling from his mouth like he was going to suck Kang dry. The thick goblin immediately spun his meat chopper, and Kang tried to block it. But with a body chronically lacking exercise due to long-term unemployment and armed with only a 70-centimeter-long weapon, there was no way Kang could stop him. Kang started crying. The goblin easily disarmed Kang, throwing his small weapon away in a single blow. But the thick goblin didn't kill Kang right away. Oh no. He started playing with Kang's body slowly, taking his time, slowly ripping body parts one by one, and God knows what else he did to Kang. Ew, I don't even want to think about it. Now Kang was almost half dead, crying with tears in his eyes. He could barely keep his eyes open, his body covered in blood, as the goblin dragged him away, holding him by the neck. The goblin was laughing at Kang, who couldn't understand what was happening to him. "Why do I have to go through this?" he thought. The pain in his body was unbearable, like he was in hell. Kang was left wondering why the goblin wasn't just letting him die. All he could do was wish that he would wake up from this nightmare as soon as possible. But Kang's suffering didn't end there. That day, he realized just how much blood a human body can hold. That thick and juicy goblin? After having his twisted fun with Kang, he dragged him for hours, holding him by the collar, taking him who knows where. And for all those hours, Kang endured unimaginable pain, unbearable, hellish suffering. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the goblin hauled him in front of 3 more goblins, and then all 4 of them had their way with him. Kang's death came from blood loss and intense torture. He woke up in his bed screaming like a madman. Hearing his screams, Kang's sister Juhi woke up. She was angry, annoyed, and frustrated. She burst into his room with a loud bang, scolding him. "What is this crap happening again so early in the morning? Why are you screaming like a madman at 4 a.m.? And to top it off, Juhi's head was aching, and Kang wasn't letting her get any sleep. But when Juhi noticed Kang, poor Kang, curled up in the corner of his bed, wrapped in a blanket, shaking like a leaf, scratching his nails like a madman, she was shocked. All Kang could mutter was, "Goblins, I'm scared. Please, no more." Seeing this, Juhi was both shocked and confused. After some time, Juhi managed to bring Kang to the dining table, but he was still shivering uncontrollably. While sitting there, Kang, still trembling, told her everything. He recounted how he died from excessive bleeding and what had happened to him from start to finish. But Kang couldn't bring himself to tell his sister the full horror, that the goblins had their fun with him. He only told her the basics. First, that thick goblin started pulling out all his fingernails and toenails, one by one. Then he crushed all of Kang's fingers. But it didn't stop there. The goblin then started pulling out Kang's teeth, one by one. Juhi, hearing this, couldn't take any more. She closed her ears and said that if she listened to any more, she'd faint. Juhi then shared that she couldn't complete stage 2 either, but nothing like that had happened to her. She had died from just one shock from a normal goblin. She then asked Kang, "Is that why you were crying?" At that moment, Kang felt deeply ashamed that he had cried in front of his younger sister. Trying to defend himself, Kang stood on his chair and shouted, "Because you haven't experienced all this yourself, you can't understand. Even if Mike Tyson was here, he'd be shouting louder than me and probably would have run to his mom." Seeing Kang's outburst, Juhi calmed down and said, "It's okay. I was just joking to lighten the mood, and it looks like it worked." She added, "Seeing you shouting like this, I guess you're okay now." Then she asked, "But don't you think you need to go to the hospital?" Kang was confused. "Hospital?" he asked. Juhi explained that news had spread worldwide about how people who died from goblin attacks in this level had become so traumatized that psychiatric departments were seeing 10 times the usual number of patients. But no one had been hurt as badly as Kang. Kang, trying to save face, said, "I'm not that weak. I'm a man, and a man doesn't feel pain." Hearing this, Juhi felt cringed. But then she shared some good news. It's been reported that those who die in the tutorial won't have the dream again the next day. Hearing this, Kang was overjoyed. He thought, finally, I'll be able to sleep peacefully tonight. But will he really? That night, as Kang went to sleep, the same voice welcomed him back. The voice said, "Kang's special ability, Resurrection, has been activated." The tutorial would start again for him. At that moment, Kang felt his world collapse, like he'd seen a ghost. The air seemed to leave his body and he started screaming, "Son of a dog! Who made this disgusting system?" Finally, after an hour of venting his frustration, the system notified him that because he was in the tutorial zone, he wouldn't be penalized for dying. But Kang was completely traumatized. He hadn't slept for 8 hours, thinking that when he woke up in the real world, he'd finally escape this nightmare. But even after 8 hours, nothing changed. He in fact slept in the tutorial zone, but when he woke up, he was in the same place. Kang had been stuck there for 2 days now, but he couldn't find a way out. He realized there was only one way to escape, either complete the level or die. But if he died, he'd just wake up the next day to do it all over again. This thought pushed Kang closer to a mental breakdown. After a few hours, accepting his reality, Kang got up and saw a bunch of weapons in front of him. This time, he chose 2. A crossbow for long-distance kills, and a heavy weapon for close combat. He felt pretty confident about the crossbow. "Let me show you," he said. "I used to be a great shot as a kid." With intense focus, he aimed for the thick goblin's forehead, but the arrow only grazed the goblin's cheek. Nothing happened. The thick goblin turned around, saw Kang, and started drooling. Kang knew that if this goblin caught him again, the same thing would happen all over again. Kang also had a spear with him, so he grabbed it and prepared to fight. Since the spear was a long weapon, he managed to kill a small goblin easily. Seeing this, he was thrilled. But as soon as he tried to pull the spear out of the goblin's chest, he realized it was stuck in the bones. Before Kang could free the spear, the thick goblin crushed his head, killing him instantly. Kang woke up again, clutching his chest, gasping for air. But this time, he was strangely happy. At least he had died in one shot and avoided the torture. Day 3 rolled around, and Kang found himself back in the same place. The system notified him again that Stage 2 was about to start. By now, Kang was fed up with hearing the system notifications. He even threatened, "If you say it again, I'll finish the system myself." This time, Kang didn't rush in like a madman to kill the goblins. He realized he was a pathetic loser weakling compared to them. He remembered watching videos of professional fighters on YouTube and decided to try something new. After watching those videos, he approached the goblins with a shield and a sword. But once again, he was killed in a single shot. Kang woke up, screaming again. By this point, he was genuinely mad. He grabbed his head and started screaming like a psychopath, vowing that next time he would kill every single goblin. Hearing all this commotion, Juhi came to check on him, but Kang kept repeating the same thing over and over. "I'll kill you, I'll kill every goblin." It was like the soul of the Goblin Slayer had possessed him. Seeing all this, Juhi thought to herself, one screw was loose in his mind before, now they've all come loose. By day 5, Kang had realized that watching videos on YouTube wasn't enough. He needed real-life experience. So in the same cave where he kept spawning, he took his sword and started practicing for hours, swinging it over and over. He trained relentlessly, even though he was exhausted, but his hard work paid off. After swinging the sword for an hour, the system notified him that his stamina had increased by 1. This pushed Kang to go beyond his limits. Seeing this, Kang was thrilled, but he collapsed from exhaustion. Frustrated, he thought, after swinging the sword for 8 hours, only 1 stamina point increased? This is injustice. Then he remembered that he had an additional stat point, so he put it into his strength. Now, with an extra point in strength and increased stamina, he thought he could finally take down the goblin. Filled with confidence, he screamed as he charged at the goblin again, but once more, the goblin killed Kang in a single blow. Kang woke up screaming yet again. For the next 15 days, Kang returned to the tutorial zone like a madman. He exercised, did push-ups, trained with his sword, and increased his stats. When he got tired of training, he'd let the goblins kill him in one blow and return to the real world. But all this took a toll on Kang's mind. He was on the verge of a mental breakdown when the system notified him that he had acquired basic swordsmanship at level F. Seeing this, Kang was surprised. The system explained that this swordsmanship skill was only used by local thugs, but it was better than nothing. Kang didn't care about the details. He was just happy to have acquired a skill. Although he had been training for hours, as soon as he picked up his sword, something changed in him. His eyes turned red, and he started screaming like a madman, filled with an uncontrollable rage. He shouted, "Today I'm going to kill every single goblin." His voice echoed through the cave, filled with a mix of anger and desperation. Although Kang had spent more than 15 to 20 days in the tutorial zone, in reality only 7 days had passed. During these days, Kang had gathered a lot of information. First off, there were only 5 goblins in the zone. 4 of them were the small chicken leg piece goblins, which Kang managed to defeat one by one. The main problem, however, was the perverted thick goblin. He was tough, making him very difficult to defeat. Kang had defeated the small goblins and now stood face to face with the thick one. The goblin attacked Kang with his meat chopper, but Kang dodged the blow with his shield. Kang had changed a lot. Now he could see the goblin's attacks coming. He could block and dodge them. With a dead, serious face, Kang unlocked his basic swordsmanship ability and tried to cut the goblin's head off. But once again, Kang only managed to scratch the goblin's face. He was already exhausted from defeating the other 4 goblins, and now after fighting the thick goblin, he was nearly spent, shivering with fatigue. Sensing Kang's weakness, the thick goblin took advantage, swinging his meat chopper and knocking Kang's sword far away. Kang was surprised, but managed to dodge another attempt by the goblin to cut his leg. Smirking, Kang thought to himself that this goblin really enjoyed torturing him. After fighting him so many times, Kang had memorized the goblin's attack pattern. The goblin never tried to kill Kang outright. He just wanted to capture him alive and have fun torturing him. This knowledge gave Kang a small advantage. Taking that advantage, Kang quickly bent down and kicked mud into the goblin's face, causing him to cry out in pain as the dirt stung his eyes. The goblin shouted loudly in agony. Seizing the moment, Kang picked up a large stone and smashed it into the goblin's leg with great force, breaking it. The goblin screamed in pain, thrashing his meat chopper wildly. Kang circled behind him while the goblin was still reeling from the attack. By the time the thick goblin opened his eyes, it was too late. Kang, screaming, "I am the strongest! I am inevitable!" smashed the goblin's face with the stone, causing blood to gush from the goblin's mouth and nose. The thick goblin collapsed, his body trembling as he struggled to breathe. Kang was overjoyed, patting himself on the back and praising himself for his victory, but the goblin wasn't dead yet. He was unconscious. Kang's face twisted into a sinister smile, his eyes gleaming with revenge. With a chilling grin, he whispered, "I'm going to torture this bastard as much as he tortured me." And with that, Kang tortured the goblin until he was dead. As soon as the goblin died, the system congratulated Kang for clearing Stage 2. He was awarded 5 additional stat points and a reward that allowed him to choose any weapon of his choice. Kang spread his arms, looked up at the sky, and said, "This is the power of the ultimate being! Am I a god?" He then started laughing like a maniac. The scene shifted, and we saw Kang back at his house, wearing an apron and cooking in the kitchen. Despite being a big deal in the tutorial, he was still a loser at home. Living at his sister's house for free meant he had to wake up every morning and cook. Kang told himself he was cooking in celebration of clearing Stage 2. He was in a good mood, happily tasting the food, when suddenly, with a bam, Juhi burst through the door. Startled, Kang burned his mouth on the hot food. Juhi, utterly shocked, asked if Kang had really cleared Stage 2. But before he could answer, a loud noise echoed across the earth, announcing that the tutorial had been completed. Those who had completed the tutorial could now freely use their abilities in the real world. Kang and Juhi were surprised, but their surprise didn't end there. Another notification appeared stating that the dungeon was activating and the whole world started shaking. Juhi and Kang ran to the balcony, and what they saw was beyond belief. A huge, creepy black door had appeared just outside their house. The system explained that this was a dungeon, and only those who had completed any level of the tutorial would be able to use it. This dungeon had appeared all over the world. The system then displayed a countdown indicating that there were 4 years, 3 days, 57 hours, 13 minutes, and 51 seconds remaining until complete connection with the Hakin dimension. After the dungeon appeared, the whole world plunged into chaos. Kang and Juhi decided to stay inside and look for organized, reliable information. That's when Kang discovered that the tutorial wasn't actually over yet. It turned out that a lot of people had just turned 18 that day and had received the tutorial for the first time. This meant that anyone who turned 18 would experience the tutorial. The world was going crazy, but Kang wasn't paying attention to all that. He was too excited to open his status window. He dramatically extended his hand and said, "Status window, open!" But nothing happened for a few seconds. Finally, the status window appeared, but it stated that the tutorial was still in progress, so Kang couldn't use it yet. Kang was confused, but then he realized that there were a total of 8 stages in the tutorial. It had been 8 days since the first tutorial started for others, meaning they had completed it and could use their status windows. But because of his resurrection ability, Kang was stuck in Stage 2. This meant that until he completed all 8 stages, he wouldn't be able to use his status window. Kang was very sad upon realizing this. He asked Juhi if she had found any information about Stage 3 online. Juhi explained that the tutorial was so difficult that very few people had reached Stage 3 or 4, and those who had completed it were keeping the information secret. They didn't want others to gain power so easily. But Kang, showing off his body and biceps, said, "I don't need that information anyway. I'm a genius, and I'll complete Stage 3 just like that." But will he really be able to do it? Let's see. The scene shifted again, showing a beautiful night with a glowing moon. In that moonlight, a glittering, delicious-looking golden liquid was falling like a waterfall. It turned out that it wasn't a waterfall at all, but a tribal man peeing, and that pee was falling directly on Kang's face. Kang was sitting quietly in a ghillie suit, and the tribal man was peeing on his head. The pee dripped slowly down Kang's mouth, and his mind filled with rage. "I will kill you! I will definitely kill you, you Then we go 10 hours back, in a flashback, to when Kang first arrived at Stage 3. As soon as he stepped into this new stage, the system welcomed him and announced that the name of the stage was Patience and Endurance Test. In any situation, the clear condition was that Kang had to kill a Gurkhan chieftain without anyone knowing. The fail condition, death. When Kang looked down at himself, he noticed he was wearing a ghillie suit. After assessing his situation, he realized this was some sort of hitman or assassin-type mission. He had never heard of a monster named Gurkhan Chieftain, so his first step was to find it. But before setting out on his mission, Kang wanted to check what rewards he had earned from Stage 2. He opened his status window and saw that he had leveled up from level 2 to level 4. His strength and agility were both at 10, stamina at 11, and magic at 14, with an additional stat point of 7. Not only that, he now had 3 abilities: basic swordsmanship, basic shield technique, and basic crossbow technique. Seeing this, Kang was amazed and shouted, "I am so rich! This is exactly how a status window should look." But Kang's happiness didn't last long. As soon as he opened the details for his basic shield and basic crossbow skills, he saw that they were practically useless. The shield skill was good enough to block local kids from bullying him, and the crossbow skill could only kill small goons. Kang's enthusiasm quickly turned to annoyance. Then, he remembered that because he cleared Stage 2, he had received a weapon as a reward. He eagerly opened his inventory and found a sword. Clicking on it, he pulled out a sparkling sword from his inventory. Kang admired the sword carefully, feeling very cool and powerful. He took the sword in his hand and started laughing like a madman, saying, "This is so awesome! I've always wanted to hold a sword like this." But the system, ever the buzzkill, notified him again. "This is just a shabby longsword." Kang's excitement turned to irritation once more, and he left in a huff. As Kang moved forward, he narrated to himself that Charlos Hathcock was a legendary sniper who had successfully assassinated a general from 1.4 kilometers away after crawling for 3 days. Kang respected him a lot. Kang had been crawling for 10 hours and had finally reached his destination, a village guarded by tribal people with drums beating in the background. He started thinking about how to kill the chieftain. There were many small huts, but Kang assumed the chief would be in the biggest one. At that moment, a guard slowly approached Kang, but Kang didn't notice him. After crawling in the grass for the past 10 hours, Kang had leaked pee, making his pants sticky and causing grass to cling to his body. Insects were biting him, and rainwater was soaking him to the ass. Kang was deep in thought when suddenly the guard appeared in front of him. The AIR seemed to leave Kang's lungs as he realized he might be caught. Kang looked up, and there stood a big, thick, muscular guard staring straight down at him. Kang thought his mission was over, but the guard slowly lifted his pants and started pissing directly on Kang's head. The guard, oblivious to Kang's presence, had simply come to pee in the grass, unaware that someone was hidden there. The pee kept flowing, dripping slowly into Kang's mouth. Kang's head was bursting with anger, his body trembling with rage. But he knew he had to stay calm, had to endure this humiliation. "I have to endure," he kept telling himself. "No matter what happens, I have to endure." The system had said this was a test of patience and endurance, and Kang was trying his best to hold it together. But then the guard started playing with his pee, letting it splash onto Kang's face. That was it. That was the final straw. Kang's rope of patience snapped. He leaped up, screaming, and started chasing after the guard, yelling, "I'm gonna cut your little pee-pee off!" The guard turned around in shock, seeing Kang's face still covered in his pee. Kang, screaming like an animal, charged at the guard with his sword in hand. In one swift blow, he killed the guard, cutting him clean in two. The guard's body fell to the ground, and Kang gave a satisfying smile. But his actions had alerted the other guards. They quickly surrounded Kang, more than 100 of them. Kang stood there, realizing he had really messed up. So he decided to go out with a bang. He thought, "I might as well say the line I've always wanted to try." Kang screamed with all his might, "Come at me, you son of bastards!" The guards charged at him, but because of his scream, the system notified Kang that he had acquired a new skill, Lion's Roar of Rage. No one knew what skill it was, but what was clear was that all the guards tore Kang to pieces and fed him to the animal. The next day, Kang was furious. He grabbed his ghillie suit in his hand and screamed, "I will kill everyone one by one!" His scream was so intense that the system notified him that his Lion's Roar of Rage had been upgraded to D-grade. This new skill allowed him to lower the stats and morale of surrounding enemies and remove all debuffs on himself. We then see Kang throwing his ghillie suit into the air and screaming, "I will kill each and every one of you damn bastards!" before charging toward the guards. Last time, Kang had spent 10 hours hiding in the bushes, observing that in the morning, the guards would scatter to go hunting. This meant they were easier to pick off one by one in the morning. Armed with this knowledge, Kang began cutting them down one by one, making his way to the tent. In a moment, Kang was inside the tent, his face twisted into a sinister smile. He hissed, "I'm here, you bastard Gurkhan chieftain!" But what he saw next made him go crazy. Inside the tent was a fat, ugly chieftain sitting comfortably, but next to him were two mages activating spells. With a single command from the chieftain, the mages released their spells on Kang. Kang suddenly felt stuck, as if the gravity around him had increased tenfold. He couldn't move. He was trapped. Kang didn't understand how to get out of this situation until he remembered his lion's roar of rage. Taking a deep breath, he screamed, "Die, you ugly fat ass!" The debuff was lifted instantly, and even the chieftain was shocked. Kang didn't waste a second. He charged at the chieftain, a satisfying smile on his face, and declared, "I am inevitable," before slicing the chieftain in two. With that, the system notified him that he had completed Stage 3 of the tutorial. Kang had gained a new ability, physical regeneration, which was B rank as a clear reward. And because Kang had completed Stage 3 in the shortest time possible, a new world record, he earned an additional reward, a title, the Undying League, which would increase his stats by 1. Kang paused for a moment, thinking, I completed Stage 3 in just 2 days. It had taken him weeks to complete Stage 2, and everyone knew what a mess he had been in Stage 1. Am I really a genius? He became very happy, imagining that if he kept clearing stages at this rate, he would complete Stage 4 in just a few minutes. He started fantasizing about himself as a legendary knight standing atop a slain dragon. But reality quickly caught up with him. A month had passed, and Kang still hadn't completed Stage 4. One morning, while cooking and watching the news, Kang suddenly woke up screaming. Juhi, his sister, wasn't even surprised. It had become a routine. She sighed and muttered, "There he goes again with his bullshit." She turned off the gas stove and remarked that if Kang kept waking up screaming like this, the neighbors would think she was killing him every morning. Juhi asked Kang, "What happened today? Did you slip, hit your head on a rock, and die?" She was clearly making fun of him. But then we see a very thick leg step out of Kang's room. In a loud voice, someone shouted, "I cleared it, you idiot!" Juhi, still half asleep, but then she saw Kang, his whole body wrapped in a red aura, screaming, "I just fucked everyone up!" Juhi didn't take Kang's words seriously at first, but as he stepped into the light, she was shocked, bewildered, and confused. She couldn't speak for a moment, but then she screamed, "What happened to you?" Standing in front of her was Kang, his body now swollen and twice the size it used to be, muscles bulging, his entire frame having become 10 times. After some time, we see Juhi, confused and bewildered, sitting down to have breakfast with Kang. She couldn't help but ask, "How did you become like this, Kang?" Kang, clearly very annoyed and frustrated, snapped back, "This tutorial won't let me live in peace. It's turned my life into hell." Juhi, still not fully understanding, said, "All that's fine, but day by day you're starting to look more like a criminal." Kang, with a hint of sarcasm, joked, "Wow, thanks. My little sister thinks I look like a criminal." And just like that, the two of them fell into their typical brother-sister bickering. After a while, with a serious expression, Kang explained that Stage 4 wasn't as hard as it seemed. Stage 4's theme was leadership, he began. All I had to do was lead a party, go inside the dungeon, and destroy its core. Simple, right? In the beginning, his party members seemed kind and helpful, but soon they started arguing, fighting over who would take the lead, how the resources would be managed, who would get the drops. Somehow, Kang managed to convince everyone and took over as the leader. After clearing Stage 3, he had acquired the Intermediate Body Regeneration ability, a B-grade skill that allowed any cuts, burns, or fractures to regenerate automatically using mana. This made it easier for him to lead the group. Juhi, curious, asked, "If everything was going so well, why did it take you a month to complete Stage 4? Hearing this, Kang's mood shifted. He became depressed and didn't say anything for a moment. Then, with a deep and frustrated voice, he said, "The trouble started that night. Every time I fell asleep, my so-called party members would murder me in my sleep." Kang's voice grew louder as he recalled the events. "Those bastards were supposed to take turns keeping watch, but every single time I went to sleep, despite all I did for them, some party member would kill me in my sleep." This happened to Kang repeatedly for an entire month. He shouted so loudly in his frustration that he spilled food all over Juhi's face. Juhi, wiping her face angrily, snapped, "Eat first, then talk, you crazy bastard!" Kang, now a bit calmer, started eating slowly. After a few bites, Juhi asked, "So how did Kang manage to complete Stage 4 today?" At this, Kang finally broke down. He started laughing like a psychopath, like a man who had lost his mind, with saliva dripping from his mouth. His eyes glowed red as he said, "I just eliminated all the annoying pests and moved on." The scene flashed back to the previous day. Kang stood with his party members who, as usual, started arguing. But this time, Kang's patience snapped. All the veins in his face popped out as he shouted, "To hell with the system! To hell with leadership!" He roared so loudly, using his lion's roar, that everyone's ears almost burst. One of the party members, a witch who had killed Kang the most times, started yelling at him, asking what he was doing. But Kang was beyond reason. He pointed his sword at her chest and, with deadly eyes and a deep voice, said, "From now on, you all will follow my instructions. If anyone even itches without my permission, I will cut them from head to toe." Another party member, a yellow-haired guy named Pidu, tried to protest. "Are you crazy? Why should we listen to you?" But before he could finish his sentence, Kang punched him hard. Not just once, he kept punching him until Pidu was nearly dead. His face swelled up, his teeth were broken, and he cried so hard he couldn't even speak. He just nodded, saying, "I agree." The others were in shock, including the girl who started crying. After a moment, Kang, with that same deadly expression, repeated, "If anyone even itches without my permission, I will make sure you will beg me to die." After this, Kang went on a rampage, speed running through the dungeon. He raided it 29 times, so he remembers every route. So just in 8 hours, without sleeping, Kang slaughtering all the monsters one by one. He reached the dungeon's core and destroyed it in an instant. As soon as he did, the system congratulated Kang for completing Stage 4, awarding him a Ring of Strong Mind, a B-grade item. Kang's status window showed that he was now level 15, with strength at 17, agility at 16, endurance at 17, and magic at 15. By this time, Kang had raided the dungeon 30 times, collecting a vast amount of loot in his inventory: armor, weapons, pearls, magic stones. But he didn't even know what they were for. The Ring of Strong Mind made Kang immune to any mental attacks. Despite all the strength he had gained in the tutorial, none of it seemed to matter in the real world. But after Stage 5, Kang's body became the same as it was in the tutorial. He tried many times to use his powers, but he was still unable to do so. Right now, Kang was doing push-ups, his body now thick, muscular, and juicy. What a body. He finally completed his 1,000th push-up with one hand, sweat dripping from his body and evaporating as heat. After his push-up session, he wiped the sweat off and thought, "When will I finally complete Stage 8? As he pondered this, his phone rang. He thought it was just an ad, but as soon as he read the message, the ground beneath his feet trembled. There was a dungeon breakout, and the monster from that dungeon was a goblin. And this dungeon had opened right in front of the place where Juhi worked. Kang didn't waste a second. He ran to his house, searching frantically for a weapon. He looked left and right, panicking, cursing under his breath. Finally, he found a kitchen knife in the basin. Without wasting another moment, he grabbed it and dashed out of the house. A short while later, Kang stood outside Juhi's office. He took a deep breath and shouted, "It's been a while, you son of a chicken lollipop!" Hearing Kang's voice, all the goblins were immediately attracted to him. Kang was a little disappointed, thinking, as expected, I still can't use my skills. But that was a different story. Hearing Kang's outburst, all the goblins started running towards him, ready to kill. But instead of fear, Kang was filled with joy. He cursed the goblins, saying, "Why do you sound like monkeys?" Inside, Kang was cautious, realizing that this was his first time fighting real monsters outside the tutorial. He wondered if these goblins were more powerful or weaker than the ones in the tutorial. Pushing those thoughts aside, he gripped his knife like a pro and, in a single moment, sliced off a goblin's head with a satisfying smile. The goblin died instantly, and Kang, with a deadly and sinister smile, thanked all the goblins, saying, "In the first stage, I couldn't satisfy my hunger by killing only 4 or 5 goblins. Until I kill more than 100 goblins, I won't find peace." He pulled his kitchen knife out of the goblin's head and started slaughtering the goblins one by one. Meanwhile, inside Juhi's office, all the workers barricaded the entrance door with all the furniture they could find. But outside, someone was laughing like crazy, and heavy footsteps echoed as they approached the building. Everyone, including Juhi, was terrified. Juhi looked at her phone, and there was a message from Kang asking if she was still in the office. "If you are, then stay there," he wrote. Juhi was confused. Is Kang coming here? She wondered. But before she could complete her thought, that maniacal laughter grew louder, and the footsteps grew heavier. Suddenly, Kang burst through the door, smashing through all the heavy furniture. Covered in goblin blood, Kang stood there with a satisfying smile, like a psychopathic, cold-hearted murderer. Smiling, he said, "Juhi!" Your big brother is here." After a moment, everyone paused for a couple of seconds, just staring at Kang. They couldn't quite comprehend who this psychopath in front of them was. Even Juhi, seeing Kang in this condition, felt embarrassed. All her friends started glancing at her, their eyes filled with confusion and disbelief. Kang stood there, a kitchen knife slung over his shoulder, scanning the office as if trying to process that Juhi actually worked here. But before he could say anything, an old man, the department head, freaked out. He shouted at Kang, "Who the hell are you? And how did you break down the door to get inside?" At this rate, all the monsters. Before the man could finish his sentence, Kang politely apologized, saying he couldn't control his powers and accidentally used too much strength. But don't worry, I've already sent all the goblins outside straight to hell. Everyone was shocked seeing the dead goblins laying lifeless on the floor. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. Before anyone could say another word, Kang chuckled and said, "He saw a lot of goblins in the alley and the nearby buildings, so I'll take care of them too." With that, he casually rested the goblin's sword on his shoulder, turned around and walked forward with swagger. He threw a glance back toward everyone and with a smirk said, "If I don't kill those goblins, I won't sleep peacefully tonight." The scene then shifted, showing Kang tied up in bandages, with Juhi tending to his wounds. Juhi, clearly annoyed, scolded him. "We don't have much saline water left. If you were going to get this injured, why'd you go out to kill all those goblins just to look cool?" Kang patted his body and shrugged. Right now, he is just an ordinary person. He can't use the skills he had in the tutorial, so yeah, he got a few scratches here and there, but it's no big deal. Juhi, her expression serious, warned Kang. If he can't use his abilities here, that means if he die, Kang might die for real. Kang brushed it off with a smirk. Yeah, but you gotta admit, what he did was pretty cool, right? Juhi, cracking a smile, reluctantly agreed. Yeah, it was cool. And just like that, their playful brother-sister banter kicked off again. Then, with a mischievous grin, Juhi leaned in and whispered in Kang's ear that all her friends have fallen for Kang after that cool act he pulled. They're driving her crazy, begging her to introduce them to Kang. Hearing this, our single virgin Kang started blushing and drifted off into his thoughts. But night soon fell, and as Kang went back to sleep, he was instantly greeted by the same voice, welcoming him to Stage 5. The voice announced, "The theme of this stage is wisdom." Kang didn't quite understand what wisdom meant in this context, but before he could wrap his head around it, a group of thick, juicy, plot-twisting mommy milkers girls appeared around him. They asked with seductive voices, "Are you the succubus?" Kang was utterly confused. Then the system notified him that the objective of this stage was to identify and kill the succubus hiding among these women. However, the catch was that once Kang discovered the succubus's true identity, he would become its first target. Hearing the word succubus, Kang's imagination ran wild. In his mind, he imagined a thick, juicy woman, seductive like a vampire, calling out to him. He remembered from games that a succubus drains men's juice, and now, with all these beautiful women in front of him, his single status ignited his inner passion. Before Kang could get too lost in his fantasies, a young, cute girl approached him. With a seductive voice, she asked, "What do you think? Who among us is the succubus?" For the first time, Kang found himself face to face with a girl who was not only cute, but also talking to him. He blushed, stammering, I don't know." But before he could say anything more, the system notified him that his ring of strong will was blocking a mental attack. Kang instantly realized that this girl was the succubus trying to control his mind. As night fell, Kang sat by the campfire, reflecting on the stages he had completed. Stage 1 was a nightmare of an inferno circus. Stage 2 was a brutal battle with goblins. Stage 3 had him crawling through mud for 10 hours only to get peed on by a monster. And Stage 4 was a month-long group project from hell. Kang chuckled to himself, thinking, finally I can enjoy something interesting after all that. The guy who had been cursing God all this time suddenly found himself thanking God, saying, "Thank you, God. Finally I can have some fun with these beautiful women." He was laughing so perverted that he had to control himself, thinking, no, I need to keep my cool. If the succubus finds out, I'm done for. And since the succubus only targeted men and Kang had mental protection, it meant that the succubus was toying with the other male NPCs. So for now, he decided to get some sleep. Tomorrow, he would make friends with the other female NPCs and finally defeat the succubus. But as soon as he woke up, he realized he wasn't in the tutorial anymore. He was back in Juhi's office. Startled, He shouted, waking up. Everyone around him cheered, congratulating him for heroically defeating the goblins. Even the male workers had become fans of Kang. They told him the good news. The army had arrived, but Kang wasn't in the mood to listen. He was still furious, angry at the succubus for almost getting the better of him. He muttered to himself that the succubus must have figured out that he knew her identity and had tried to kill him in his sleep. Just then, the rumbling of army trucks brought Kang back to reality. The whole building shook from the vibrations. The army had arrived, fully armed with AK-47S, M416S, and machine gun, mowing down goblins left and right. Everyone on the rooftop cheered with relief, but Kang sensed something was off. A creepy, chilling aura filled the air. Kang's eyes darted around until he spotted it. The army was gunning down goblins, but something wasn't right. Then he saw it, a red goblin with a spear, dodging every bullet fired at him. In one swift motion, the goblin separated a soldier's head from his body with a single blow. Panic erupted as the soldiers unleashed a hail of gunfire, but the goblin didn't even get a scratch. Instead, he grew angrier, his eyes turning blood red. With a terrifying roar, he charged at the army trucks, leaping into the air and slaughtered everyone in his path with a single strike. Kang watched all of this unfold from above, but it didn't end there. The red, ugly, thick goblin turned its creepy, deadly eyes directly toward Kang, staring right into his soul from across the building. That ugly-ass goblin had already taken down 3 army trucks, leaving just one standing. Panic set in among the soldiers as they frantically called for backup over the mic, but that didn't stop the ugly ass. After obliterating the remaining trucks, the ugly ass stood triumphantly on top of the last one, a lustful, perverted grin spreading across his face like he was ready to suck them dry. Now, I don't know about other goblins, but let me tell you, when you see one looking like that, you better call a goblin slayer. The soldiers trembled in fear, their hands shaking as they tried to hold their weapons steady. The red goblin, with one powerful leap, launched himself at them. One brave soldier pulled out his M416 and began firing, but he knew deep down he was fucked up. Just as the red goblin was about to finish off the soldier, Kang arrived on the scene. Without a second thought, Kang picked up a massive piece of concrete and hurled it straight at the goblin's face. The impact sent the goblin flying far back. The soldiers, still in shock, tried to comprehend what had just happened. Who or what had just saved them? Kang entered the truck in style, a villainous smile playing on his lips. The soldiers, already scared of the red goblin, felt a new wave of fear wash over them as they looked at Kang's menacing grin. One soldier, his voice trembling, shouted, "It's a new monster attack! Fire at will!" Kang, now panicking himself, shouted back, "I'm a human! Are you crazy?" The soldier took a closer look and realized that despite his monstrous appearance, Kang was indeed human. Embarrassed, he muttered an apology, thinking Kang might be one of the awakened they had called for support. But Kang wasn't focused on the soldier's apology. He noticed the red goblin slowly getting back up. Kang didn't decide to help the army because he was kind and wanted to act like a hero. No. He realized that if the army lost, the goblin would have come straight for him, putting Juhi in danger. Deciding it was better to take the goblin down with the army's help, he acted swiftly. Kang hopped off the truck and asked the soldiers, "You guys got any tear gas?" They nodded, but mentioned they didn't have an extra mask for Kang. Without hesitation, Kang replied, "He don't need a tear gas mask." The soldiers, confused, prepared to throw the tear bomb as soon as Kang engaged. Meanwhile, Juhi was freaking out, wondering what the hell Kang was thinking, going down to fight with no abilities. But it was time for the showdown. Kang versus the ugly-ass red goblin. Kang grinned, his excitement barely contained. "I've killed so many goblins, but none of them gave me the satisfaction I craved. Finally, a worthy opponent." Well, at this point, Kang officially became the Goblin Slayer. The red goblin seemed to understand Kang's taunt, growing increasingly annoyed. Before their fight could escalate, the soldier tossed the tear bomb. As it exploded, the red goblin went berserk. His eyes filled with tears and he screamed in agony, thrashing about wildly. Kang's eyes watered too, but after surviving hellish days with goblins, Kang had learned one thing. Goblins are sensitive as hell when it comes to their eyes. As for Kang, after being tortured and experiencing so much unimaginable pain, he just became Kaneki. This much pain was no big deal to him. He just laughed maniacally, exited to kill some goblin. With that, Kang dashed toward the ugly-ass goblin. Despite the water streaming from his eyes, nose, and, from God know where, Kang unleashed a barrage of attacks on the goblin, who could do nothing but close his eyes and stand there, unable to fight back. But after a while, Kang realized something unsettling. His attacks weren't even scratching the goblin. Meanwhile, the soldiers watched from a distance, wondering, is this crazy guy was actually an awakener? Just then, a voice from behind one of the soldiers said, "I thought I was the only one who came here for support. Who's this guy?" As the mysterious figure continued to watch Kang from a distance, Kang noticed that despite all his efforts, his sword was completely worn out, and the goblin still hadn't taken any damage. Kang's eyes, still filled with tears, focused on the goblin's skin. It was incredibly tough, much tougher than he'd anticipated. If only he had his skills, he could have sliced through it in an instant, but without them, it was nearly impossible to cause any real damage. Just as Kang was wondering what to do next, someone zoomed past him, a blur of speed, and unleashed a flurry of attacks on the red goblin. Kang was surprised. This guy was fast, no doubt about it. But even with this new assault, the red goblin didn't get a single scratch. The fast guy and Kang locked eyes, and the newcomer asked, "Are you an awakener? If so, we don't have time for introductions. We need to do something to take this bastard down." Kang nodded in agreement, and together they launched a coordinated attack on the goblin. Kang struck from behind while the fast guy attacked from the front, but still, the goblin remained unscathed. Kang realized just how insanely tough the goblin's body was. Normal attacks weren't going to cut it, literally. Kang's sword was nearly destroyed when he spotted a pointed axe nearby. He ran to grab it, and the fast guy, noticing, called out, "I've got the speed, but I don't have the attack power." Kang didn't even respond. He just picked up the axe with a serious expression, knowing he had to end this now. Kang thought to himself, this ugly-ass red goblin merely defending, waiting for his chance to strike back once the tear gas wore off. Kang knew he had to find the goblin's weakness, fast. He figured the goblin's body was as hard as iron, but maybe there was a softer spot somewhere. His eyes, his mouth, but the goblin's defense was too strong. Then Kang had an idea. He ran toward the goblin with the axe, screaming as he did. In one swift motion, he penetrated the goblin. The red goblin paused, feeling a strange mix of pain and pleasure, unable to comprehend the sensation. Even the fast guy was shocked at what Kang had just done. Kong, with a twisted smile, used Kakashi's 100 Years of Death extreme version, inserting the axe deep inside the ugly ass. "Well, this is one hell of a way to pop your first cherry," Kong muttered with a deep, satisfying voice. "Now I will show you what true hell is." But Kong didn't stop there. He slowly pulled out his axe and jammed it back in. At that moment, an unpleasant sensation traveled up the axe handle, sending a chill down Kong's spine. A question flashed through his mind. What the hell am I doing with my life? Popping a goblin's cherry? Again, without delay. But before that, guys, I want to thank you all from the bottom of my heart for supporting my channel. Please hit that like button and help us reach 4,000 likes. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe. That will really help me make more videos. Now let's continue. Kang grabbed his axe with all his might. He twisted it around with every ounce of strength he had, and in a single forceful move, he drove the axe upright. Now the ugly ass with axe in his ass was in air. Still, Kang didn't stop. With a wild, almost unhinged energy, he yanked the red goblin down with all his might, and at that moment, the red goblin's eyes flared with rage, giving Kang a death stare. But Kang, he didn't stop there. Before the red goblin could even react, Kang pulled out his axe and smashed it back in again. Yes, this was more than enough to send the red goblin straight to hell and heaven at the same time. The sensation was so intense that the red goblin couldn't even move. Taking advantage of this, Kang instantly rushed toward the red goblin. He jumped, screaming with a satisfying smile plastered on his face. He was determined to finish the red goblin by putting his weapon right into his mouth. Meanwhile, the ugly-ass red goblin was in bad shape. He was unconscious, mouth wide open. The sensation was so extreme for him that he couldn't even twitch. And in one swift motion, he smashed the axe into the goblin's mouth, and he kept going until the goblin finally died, blood splattering everywhere. The fast guy, watching from the sidelines, could only think one thing. Who the hell is this guy? Is he really such a strong and overpowered awakener? How was he around him all this time without knowing? Well, he didn't know that Kong hadn't even used his abilities yet. Finally, when Kong was satisfied after hammering his weapon into the red goblin's face, the system notified him that he had killed the Red Goblin. And since the Red Goblin was a boss monster, Kang was going to get a reward. But since he hadn't completed the tutorial yet, he couldn't check the item. Kang picked up the item and stuffed it into his inventory. Then, the fast guy called out to Kang from behind. Seeing this, Kang panicked a little. He thought, usually items need to be distributed, right? But the Red Goblin's cherry had been popped by himself from start to finish. The fast guy had just dropped in the middle. Kang didn't want to share this item with him, so like a flash, he bolted from the scene, screaming that he had some urgent business to attend to. He turned back with a kind smile, tossing the ass-busting axe behind him, and told the fast guy, "Use the smelly axe after washing it." By the time the fast guy reacted, Kang had already disappeared. The fast guy, with style, removed his mask, revealing a goddamn handsome face. He wiped the sweat from his brow, thinking only one thing: I want to fight that guy. Several hours after defeating that hobgoblin, evening settled in. Kang took Juhi back to their house. They finally reached home at night, changed clothes, took a bath, and sat down at the dinner table. Juhi had made some delicious ramen and tofu, but she was shocked to see that ramen was being devoured like it was going out of style. She was still in shock when she showed her phone to Kang. Kang's eyes widened in disbelief. Someone had recorded Kang's ass-busting fight and uploaded it to YouTube. It had gone viral overnight. Seeing the number of views, Kang lost it. He jumped up from his seat, screaming, "Is that really me? Did I just get so many views on my video?" Juhi explained that it must have been one of her friends who had been pestering her to introduce Kang. He must have recorded the video. Kang was still in shock, but he nearly fainted when he read the comments. Everyone was praising Kang. Seeing this, Kang flashed a creepy and villainous smile. His cheeks turned a little red as he started laughing in the weirdest way. Juhi, feeling the cringe, didn't say anything for a couple of seconds. But when Kang continued his creepy laugh, she finally spoke up. "Your face is really Kang." Kang understood that Juhi was about to make fun of his face again, but before she could say more, Kang continued reading the comments. What did he see there? People were making fun of his face too. Some were saying his face looked like that of a criminal who had escaped from jail. Others said it was a face you could only make after killing 5,000 to 10,000 people. One girl even said that if she saw that face on the road, she'd pee in her pants. As he read the comments, darkness fell, and Kang went to bed. Juhi came into his room and warned him, "If you wake up screaming again tomorrow morning, it won't be good." Juhi had been hearing Kang's ugly voice every morning at 4 a.m., but Kang, blinking and giving a thumbs up, said with all the happiness in the world, "Don't worry, this stage is really fun. In fact, I'll wake up so happy tomorrow morning I'll suggest we buy a bear for breakfast." Juhi, not fully convinced but still a bit amused, left the room. As Kang lay down to sleep, he got a bit serious. He was still replaying that fight with the ugly-ass goblin in his mind. That goblin was tough. If he was that strong as an F-rank dungeon boss, Kang knew he had to complete all his tutorials as soon as possible and get his power back. If there was ever a threat to his family again, he wouldn't be able to protect them without power. With that determination, Kang finally fell asleep. While falling asleep, Kang couldn't help but imagine that thick succubus. Yeah, she might have killed him in his sleep, but damn, she was hot. Kang found himself strangely excited to meet her again. As he finally drifted off and entered the tutorial stage, his eyes remained closed, and he couldn't shake that shy feeling. He thought that as soon as he opened his eyes, he'd come face to face with that gorgeous, cute figure from his dreams. Kang slowly opened his eyes with a romantic atmosphere in mind, a kind and light smile on his face, and as soon as his eyes fully opened, guess who was in front of him? Yes, that ugly-ass, damn white-colored, creepy goblin. Seeing him, Kang got so angry, surprised, and confused that in just one punch, he sent the goblin flying across, screaming, "Holy shit, you gave me a heart attack just now." In a single punch, Kang sent the creepy goblin flying, leaving it sprawled on the ground. Kang, on the other hand, stood there confused, glancing around, searching for those thick girls he'd been expecting. He couldn't help but wonder, what the hell is this goblin doing here? Just as he was lost in thought, the system chimed in, notifying him. Kang now had to evade the cave goblin horde and escape the dungeon, making his way to a nearby town. But here's the catch. These cave goblins had terrible eyesight but extraordinary hearing. They always moved in groups of 5 to 10,000, and if Kang made even the slightest noise, he'd be toast. Well, It was already too late. Kang's scream had already alerted more than 100 goblins who now surrounded him. The color drained from Kang's face. With a dead, serious expression, Kang realized that thousands of goblins were about to eat him raw, but was not even a sing-bit worried about that. Grinding his teeth, he screamed at the top of his lungs, "Why did the tutorial content change? Where are my thick milker?" As the goblins closed in, Kang continued screaming, the same words echoing over and over, and then they ate him alive. Kang woke up screaming, drenched in sweat, startling Juhi awake yet again at 4 a.m. Meanwhile, the scene shifts. We see a man in a black coat and pants beating the crap out of two thugs. One thug lay on the floor, blood dripping from his face. He tried to say something, but the man crushed his face, silencing him. The man sighed, clearly bored out of his mind. "I'm so tired of dealing with these ants. I want to fight someone strong." Then, with the most perverted and lustful grin, he licked the thug's blood from his face. His thoughts drifted back to that ass-busting video of Kang he'd seen on YouTube, and with a twisted smile, he whispered, I want to meet and fight that guy." Almost 2 months had passed, and Kang was still stuck in the damn 5th stage of the tutorial. One night, Juhi came home from work, tired as hell. As soon as she opened the door, what does she see? Kang, wearing round glasses, suit boots, gel slicked on his forehead, a black coat draped over his shoulders, and a holy book in hand murmuring, "Holy shit." Juhi felt instant disgust. "What kind of mess am I supposed to deal with right after work?" she groaned. Kang, trying to look all majestic, explained to Juhi that his mind was all messed up after dying so many times. So he got himself a holy book and was trying to calm his mind like a damn monk. Then, with an exaggerated flair, he opened the holy book and started telling the story of his life. "How? It's been 53 days! Holy 53 days!" he shouted. "Who's the goddamn bastard changing the stage every time I open my eyes?" Sometimes he'd wake up sitting on the lap of a thick goblin. Sometimes the goblin was cooking him in a soup, and other times it was cutting his meat. Why the hell is it always goblins? Meanwhile, Juhi sat on the floor, holding her head, thinking, day by day, my brother is going crazy. Looks like I'll have to put him in a mental asylum. After listening to Kang's nonsense for half an hour, Juhi couldn't take it anymore. She stood up in anger and yelled, "Stop your nonsense! If you've got money to buy suits and boots and holy books, then why don't you get your room soundproofed so I don't have to hear your ugly voice every morning?" It was night again, and Kang went back to stage 5 with a sad face. But this time, Kang was surprised. There were no goblins around. In fact, it was a dungeon. Kang's face lit up with happiness, and the system notified him that he had to beat this dungeon. Kang gave a villainous smile and, without hesitation, headed straight for the dungeon boss. The boss turned out to be a massive tarantula. And let me tell you, I don't know about y'all, but I'm scared as hell of spiders. If I see one in my house, I'm out. So, who's scared of spiders here? And what else freaks you out? Tell me in the comments anyway. Back to Kang. That tarantula spat some nasty special juice at Kang. But Kang didn't dodge. All he could think of was biting the tarantula's throat, but the juice was poisonous, and Kang's hands started rotting from the poison. But did Kang stop? Hell no! Without hesitation, he bit his own hand off to stop the poison. The tarantula was shocked, but before it could react, Kang slid under the tarantula's belly and with a mischievous grin whispered, "This might hurt a butt." Then, with one swift move, he sliced the tarantula in half. Kang stood between the two halves as tarantula blood rained down on him. He was drenched in it, and the system notified him that he had cleared stage 5. As a reward, he gained a giant's power, which was an B-rank ability. But Kang wasn't satisfied. His mind was elsewhere. He held his hand up in the air and, like a psychopathic killer, started laughing like a madman, his sword dripping with blood. By this time, Kang had reached level 25. His strength was 20, agility 19, stamina 19, and magic 19. Using the giant's power, Kang could double his muscle power, boosting his strength by 12 for 10 minutes. Meanwhile, it was morning, and students who were about to turn 18 were freaking out about having to face the tutorial. They searched online for any easy way to clear stages 1 to 8, looking for shortcuts. But here's the problem. Those who had cleared the stages kept the secrets to themselves. Big organizations didn't want everyone getting strong, so they kept it all under wraps. Then one of the students stumbled upon a unique post titled, "The Secret to Clearing Stage 1 to Stage 8. Curious, they started reading. but soon they were sweating and confused. The post said, if you want to clear stage 1, you've got to use your muscle power and muscle power for stage 2 as well. In fact, there's nothing in the world that can't be solved by power. And if your problem isn't being solved, it means you're not strong enough. The post was full of this kind of stuff. The students quickly declared the post a scam and started joking about it in the comments. Who's this crazy person talking nonsense? They wondered. Meanwhile, Kong saw the negative comments on his post and got furious. He shouted, I've been so generous, giving all these good tips, and these kids don't even appreciate it. Juhi, seeing this, told Kang that his rules only apply to him, and he should stop troubling the poor kids. But Kang, with a thumbs up, said, just wait and see. As soon as he clears stage 8, but before Kong would finish his sentence, Juhi paused and then burst out laughing, saying, at the speed Kang is going, he will clear all the stages in 10 years. And just like that, the brother-sister fight started up again. But Kang didn't care. He used his muscle power and cleared stages 6 and 7 in one go. Stage 6 clear reward was a grade B longsword made of black steel. Durability? 500. This longsword was once wielded by a psychopath murderer. After absorbing the aura of thousands of people's blood, it turned black and could only be wielded by a sinister psycho. Stage 7 clear reward? Ronald armor. Also grade B. This was worn by a psychopath warrior in ancient times. Well, it was weird enough that all the reward items he got were used by psychopaths, Kang thought, but his mind was elsewhere. He was thinking about how he needed to somehow complete stage 8 and surprise Juhi. Only then could he use all these items in the real world. Kang opens his eyes and finds himself once again in that same endless white room. The system notifies him, welcome to stage 8, and this time a lovely, seductive voice asks him, what do you believe? Kang doesn't quite get what's being asked, but before he can make sense of it, the white space around him starts cracking. The sky above him shatters, and the ground beneath his feet breaks apart. He falls, screaming, tumbling down for what feels like an eternity. When he finally opens his eyes, he finds himself in the middle of a city, surrounded by a crowd. Is this his city? Kang wonders, confused. But then, a lady crosses his path, walking right through him like he's some kind of hologram. He turns to look at her, and suddenly, Kang notices that all the people here have human-like bodies, but their faces are not human. Some look like lizards, some like dogs, but their civilization is just like Earth. Just then, Kong notices a monster staring at him, or so he thinks. Is this monster watching me, he wonders? Is my mission to destroy this world? But then, Kong realizes it's not him the monster is watching, it's something behind him. Suddenly, a massive portal opens up behind Kang. Out pour golems, gigantic tarantulas, creepy insects, dragons, you name it. They start attacking the city, slaughtering the inhabitants right in front of Kang's eyes. The system notifies Kong the Hakin dimension has been opened. It dawns on Kong that this is what the system warned Earth about. 5 years from now, this is what will happen. A flood of monsters will invade and wipe out humanity. But that's not all. Kang sees a colossal shadow looming overhead. As he looks up, a chill runs down his spine. What the hell? He thinks. This godlike, humongous being obliterates the planet in an instant. Kang wakes up in the white, endless space again. He's completely baffled, trying to make sense of what just happened. The seductive, cute voice speaks to him again. How do you feel? Surprise? Kang looks ahead and sees a hologram of a white celestial being. Are you a god? Kang asks. The laughing angel replies, no, I'm not a god, but you can think of me as a kind of dimensional administrator, and those who reach stage 8 will have a chance to meet her and ask any question. Kong, now dead serious, asked, what I saw on that unknown planet, will that happen to Earth in 5 years? The angel replied, it depends on what humans do. She did everything she could to protect Earth from that fate. After all, I'm the one who created the tutorial and gave everyone their powers. Kong, growing more confused by the second, asked, if she is so powerful, why don't she just stop this shit from happening herself? Hearing this, she chuckled and with a seductive voice explained, she is from a different dimension. She can't just change the laws and save everyone. All she could do was give humanity a chance to survive. Then she continued, out of every one player, Kang, you were the most untalented guy and also the most entertaining. You made me laugh the most. Hearing this, Kang became serious again and was about to ask if she was the one who kept changing the theme of stage 5, but before he could finish his sentence, the angel chuckled, congratulated Kang for clearing stage 8, and said, the tutorial was just the beginning. Suddenly, Kang started to float. He realized she was the one messing with him, but before he could say a word, the floor beneath him vanished, and he began to fall. Furious, Kang raised his hand and screamed his lungs out, cursing the angel. "You son of a—" But before he could finish his sentence, Kang vanished. The angel, with a seductive tone, whispered, "I will be waiting for you." Kang wakes up furious, trying to scream again, cursing that damn angel, but nothing comes out. His face turns beet red. Then he realizes something is stuck in his mouth. He yanks it out, and what does he see? Juhi's socks. Disgusted, Kang spits and gags. Juhi is sitting there cool as a cucumber, like she's the boss of the house. She taunts him. "I knew you were going to wake up screaming again, so I came prepared. So what dish did the goblins cook up for you today?" Kang, still tasting sock, throws it back at her, smirking. He doesn't even bother to answer. Instead, he opens his status window. Juhi's eyes widen. Kang laughs, a smug smile plastered on his face. "Did you see that? The power of your amazing brother!" Juhi just rolls her eyes and stands up, not really impressed. "Now that you've completed the tutorial," she says, "get out of the house, find a job, and start earning some money. I'll make you a special breakfast just for today." Kang feels a little hurt seeing Juhi so calm, so he whines. "You could have at least congratulated me. You're so cold-hearted, no wonder you don't have a boyfriend." That hit a nerve. Juhi, without missing a beat, chucks the cooking spoon right at Kang's face. Later, we find Kang lounging on the sofa, checking his status window while Juhi heads off to work. Kang's now level 28, with strength at 21, agility 19, stamina 20, magic 20, and a slew of skill. Finally, he takes out the item he got from the ugly-ass goblin. When he opens the box, he finds a dirty, worn-out book. Kang picks it up and says, "Reveal your true nature, my boy." The system notifies him that it's a magic explosion skill book. After learning it, he can fire a magic orb with explosive power. Kang, with a dead serious face, stares at the book for a moment. Then, like a kid with a new toy, he starts laughing maniacally, holding the book up in the air. Yeah, Kang's gone a bit mad by now. The system asks if he wants to learn the skill. Kang says yes, and the book vanishes, the knowledge transferring into him. With everything he's ever wanted now at his fingertips, Kang clenches his fist, finally smiling like a normal person. "Now," he says, "it's time to go to the Awakener Association. Sign up and kick some goblin ass." Meanwhile, the scene shifts. We see a cute, innocent girl carrying a Starbucks cup. Her name's Mi Young, a newly appointed public servant whose job is to fill out forms for people who've crossed the age of 18. It's her dream job. She imagines all the handsome rookie awakeners she'll meet, but oh, how wrong she was. Cut to the reality. Mi Young is sitting at her desk, trembling with fear, tears streaming down her face. Why? Because Kang is standing right in front of her, holding an application form. He's looking like a villain straight out of a horror movie, with dead, serious eyes that seem ready to stab her with 15 knives. Poor Mi Young can't even speak. She just mumbles, "Please show your ID," but it's so soft Kang can't hear her. "What?" Kang asks, and that's enough to make her burst into tears. The other awakeners in line start whispering, thinking Kang must be some criminal who escaped from jail. Cameras come out, recording the scene. Kang, clueless, just tries to calm her down, but the more he tries, the more she cries. Then from behind, a kind voice asks, "Is there a problem here?" Kang turns around, panicked, and sees a handsome guy with glasses walking up. Their eyes meet, and they instantly recognize each other from that ugly goblin fight. Neither says a word, but they both know who the other is. This guy's name is Kim, and he's an instructor here. Kim takes the form from Mi Young and calls Kang aside. He starts questioning him, pointing out how Kang looks completely different from the application form. Kang tries to explain, saying he doesn't really know how it happened. Maybe the tutorial messed with his looks. He even offers to verify it with his fingerprint and DNA. But when Kim realizes that Kang cleared up to stage 5 and is already at level 12, he's shocked. Kang, thinking level 12 and stage 5 were low, wanted to stay low-key, but in reality, barely anyone gets past stage 3, and most people only clear stage 1 or 2. Kang finds himself in a tight situation, so he lies, saying that when the government hadn't yet made laws requiring an awakened ID to raid dungeons, he'd gone on some raids. Kim realizes Kang's hiding something, but doesn't say anything. Instead, he asks, "What exactly is that Men Force strength skill?" Kang explains it increases his muscle power by 2 for 10 minutes, and he can go zoom with it. Kim then asks Kang to show the rewards from stages 2, 5 to prove he really cleared them. Kang thinks this guy is asking way too many questions, but he doesn't have a choice. So Kang raises his hand, flexes his muscles, and then, brace yourself, bites into his own skin, chewing a big chunk out of his hand. Blood's dripping everywhere, and Kim feels a chill run down his spine. But in no time, the wound heals right in front of him. Kim, still in shock, realizes Kang has a self-healing ability. At this rate, Kang's gonna become Deadpool. Then Kang shows off his ring, explaining it prevents mental attacks and asks for permission to use his Stage 5 skill. He explains it's a skill that instills fear in nearby enemies. Kim, thinking it might not be that strong, agrees. On the other side of the room, the same perverted black coat man is standing there. As he looks over, he notices Kang taking a deep breath. The moment he sees Kang, he remembers the ass-busting video on YouTube and feels chills run down his spine. Trusting his instincts, he immediately closes his ears, knowing what's coming. The rest of the people, they don't get it until it's too late. Kang roars, and everyone in the room collapses, their strength drained, barely able to move. When Kang finishes, Kim is left in shock. Even he got affected by it. Kang, finally smiling like a normal person, asks, "Was that enough to prove it?" Both of them start to discuss things further. But meanwhile, the pervy guy is watching Kang with his mouth wide open in awe. And then he does it. He gives the most lustful, psycho, creepy reaction you've ever seen. And let me tell you, that is the face of a gay, I repeat you. If see him, you run with all you might. After a while, we see Kang imagining that he's become so handsome and hot that girls fall in love with him just by looking at his ID card. He even fantasizes that he almost got denied entry because he looked so different from his photo. On the other hand, all the candidates around Kang start gossiping, saying things like, "This guy shouted at that girl so loudly she almost cried, and she practically fainted from fear." While Kang's munching on his protein bar, Kim walks into the classroom with two instructors. As soon as he arrives, he introduces himself, saying, "My name is Kim, and I'm the instructor for this group." Everyone starts clapping, and Kim begins his lecture. He explains that the training will consist of 10 days of morning theory classes and afternoon practical sessions. Meals and accommodations will be provided here. But then Kim drops some harsh truth. "Don't think we're going to teach you some secret or techniques here. The reality is, just like trash, hunters die in dungeons every day. So if you've come here to become a hunter, keep in mind that you could die in a dungeon at any time. And with new dungeons popping up daily, even if you've studied up on existing ones, your chances of dying are still high." Kang is listening to all this and thinks, "Man, this guy's talking about death right from the get-go." Then Kim continues, "I'm not here to teach you useless stuff. I'll only teach you the basics you need to survive." After a while, Kim says it's time for a 10-minute break. Meanwhile, Kang looks up at the ceiling and mutters to himself, he was bored to death. He wonders if he'll have to endure this for 10 whole days. As Kang's lost in thought, a man with a loud voice calls out to him. His name is Sohil, a total musclehead. He raises his hand towards Kang with a polite smile. Kang looks at him and thinks, what's up with this musclehead pig? But he knows it'll be awkward if he doesn't shake hands, so he introduces himself as Kang and shakes Sohil's hand. But as soon as Kang shakes his hand, Sohil gives a smirking smile. Kang immediately understands what this musclehead is up to. Sohil puts all his strength into his grip, squeezing Kang's hand hard, saying, "Please take care of me." With a mischievous smile, Sohil thinks to himself, gotta put this guy in his place right from the start. He hasn't liked Kang since he screamed so loudly during the application process that his ears almost burst. But to Sohil's surprise, Kang doesn't react at all. Despite Sohil putting all his strength into the handshake, Kang is sitting there like he's shaking hands with a kid. Kang realizes that Sohil is trying to assert dominance, but there can only be one king in the jungle, Kang thinks, and he's not about to let Sohil dominate him. So, Kang activates his giant's power, doubling his muscle strength. This time, Kang squeezes back hard. Sohil starts panting from the pain, unable to believe that he's losing in a strength contest. He's put all his stat points into strength during the tutorial, and until now, he hasn't met anyone stronger than him in Newbie Zone. As everyone watches, Sohil's veins start popping out, and then bam! In a single snap, the veins in Sohil's right hand burst, and blood starts spraying like a fountain. The floor becomes a bloody pool. The entire classroom is shocked as Sohil goes pale. Meanwhile, our gay boy started laughing like a psychopath, with a perverted smile. He's become Kang's biggest fan, drooling with admiration, even clapping as the floor gets drenched in blood. and the musclehead screams in pain. An ambulance comes and takes Sohil away. Meanwhile, Kong tries to explain in anger, "This was just an accident! I didn't do anything!" That musclehead pig came over and squeezed his hand so hard that if he hadn't used his strength in self-defense, his veins would have burst. Kang tells Kim if he don't believe him, Kim can check the classroom cameras. Kim, still shocked, asks about Kang's unique ability. Kang explains that it's called Strength of the Strong, which increases his strength by 1.5 times. But Kim is confused. Didn't you say earlier that your unique ability is Strength of the Man Force, which increases your strength by 2 times? Kang tries to cover it up, saying, "I'm not great with numbers. Must have gotten confused." Kim, realizing Kang is hiding something, just sighs. He knows Kong didn't do it on purpose, so he lets it slide and tells Kong to go back to class, but warns him no more commotion. Kang, still angry, sits down and thinks, why can't anyone just let me live in peace? But then, another voice calls out to him. Kang looks up to see the same blonde guy from earlier sitting next to him. "Can I sit here?" the guy asks. Kang, irritated, says, "Sit wherever you want." But in his mind, he's thinking, first a musclehead, now a thug? The blonde guy introduces himself as Yo Song and asks if he can call Kang his elder brother. "I admire you," Yo Song says. Kang doesn't get it. Why does this guy admire me? Yo Song explains that ever since he saw Kang beating that ugly Goblin's ass on YouTube, he's been a huge fan. And when I saw you at the application process, I went crazy for you. But when I saw that musclehead's arm get busted, I knew you were the real deal. Kang thinks, this guy's not normal either. Frustrated, Kang tries to explain, it was just an accident. After sending Musclehead to the hospital, Kang gets back to class. Kim continues explaining that if a dungeon isn't cleared within 5 days, it will break, releasing monsters that will kill civilians. He explains the difference between temporary and permanent cores in dungeons. Destroy the temporary core, and the dungeon will close in 5 days. Destroy the permanent core, and it closes immediately. But then, another big-headed musclehead, Number 2 shouts from the back, "I didn't come here for useless lectures. Get me combat training and my certificate now." The guard gets angry and is about to kick him out, but Kim stops him. With a serious voice, Kim calls Musclehead No. 2 to the stage. The guy, full of confidence, with a smirking smile, says, "I'm on the stage now. Do whatever you want." Are all the people in this story genuinely perverted? Kim takes off his coat, steps down from the stage, and starts a timer on his phone for 1 minute. "If you can even touch me within this minute, you'll graduate immediately," Kim says. But then, with a deadly stare, he adds, "But if you fail, you're expelled." Both Kim and Sohil watch, saying, "Musclehead No. 2 is so arrogant, it's a bit annoying." But then, they both give a freaky, creepy, psychopathic smile and say, "But it's gonna be fun, so it's fine, I'm telling you." Both of these guys are battle fanatics. Musclehead No. 2 gets all riled up by Kim's arrogance. He pulls out his sword from his inventory with a smug smile, full of confidence, and says, "You're gonna regret this, man." Instructor No. 2 tries to warn Kim, saying, "Hey, that's a real sword, you might get hurt." But Kim, like a total badass, just adjusts his glasses with a dead serious face. "It's fine," he says coolly to his junior. Then turning to Musclehead No. 2, he adds, "Come to your daddy." Musclehead No. 2, now absolutely furious, veins practically popping out of his forehead, charges at Kim. He swings his sword with everything he's got, but Kim dodges it like it's nothing. Kim smirks and says, "If you scream like a madman and attack a monster, it'll eat your neck first." Enraged, Musclehead swings wildly, trying to cut Kim in half, only to realize he's sliced through nothing but an after image. Kim reappears right behind him like a ghost, whispering in his ear, "You might be strong, but you're so damn slow, you're useless in a real fight." This drives Musclehead crazy. His eyes glow with rage as he turns and starts attacking Kim like a madman, swinging his sword frantically, desperate to land even a single clean hit. But Kim, cool as ever, dodges every attack like he's playing with a kid, making Musclehead look like a fool. Musclehead's rage boils over, his head practically about to explode. He starts swinging his sword wildly like a savage beast. But Kim's done playing. With just one kick, he sends Musclehead No. 2's sword flying up into the ceiling. "And here's your final lesson," Kim says with a smirk. "If you keep swinging around like a madman without conserving your energy, you'll run out of stamina before you know it." Then, as cool as ever, Kim pulls out his phone, checks the time, and says, 1 minute 28 seconds. Time's up. You're expelled. The entire room is shocked. Even Kang is impressed by Kim's speed. Damn, Kang thinks, if I fought him 1v1, could I beat him? And right at that moment, both Kang and Yusong, making the most criminalistic, psychopathic, started to laugh, thinking about what would happen if they fought Kim. Yusong's so eager to fight Kim, he's practically drooling. Kim notices Yusong's laughter and looks over. What he sees is Yusong with a blushing face, saliva practically dripping from his mouth. Kong, noticing this, mutters, "Ayo, is this dude a psychopath? Maybe I shouldn't have let him sit next to me. People are gonna think this hot, handsome guy is hanging out with a psycho." Well, see, who is even talking about looking like Fico? Wow. The practical class started, and everyone gathered on the ground. Kim announced that today's focus would be on weapon training. He instructed everyone to choose their preferred weapon and begin practicing. Gradually, the instructors would come around to give individual guidance. Kang picked up a long sword and, while examining it, thought, "This is so boring." Then Yusong came up behind him, saying that practicing alone was dull and suggested they spar together. Hearing this, Kang's face lit up with excitement, but just as quickly, Kim shouted from behind that personal sparring was prohibited until day 6. If anyone was caught doing it, they'd be expelled. Hearing this, Kang's excitement vanished, replaced with disappointment. Time passed and everyone was busy practicing. From a distance, Kang sat with his mouth open, watching the others. He thought to himself, all these people are just pussies. Watching them made him sleepy. He decided that instead of just sitting there bored, he might as well swing his sword around. At least it would help build some muscle. So, half-heartedly, he started swinging his sword randomly, using his F-rank sword skill like a bumblebee flitting about. Kim noticed this and watched him for a long time. Eventually, he walked over to Kang and with an arrogant, strict voice said, "Your sword skill is trash. Where did you learn something so terrible? If you go into a dungeon with that, you'll be the first to die." Hearing this, Kang paused and stared at the instructor with deadly eyes. The instructor continued pointing out Kang's shortcomings. Kang, in his mind, imagined grabbing the instructor by the neck and, with a deadly, creepy, villainous face, threatening him. "Let's fight one-on-one. Let's see if my sword skill is trash or not." In reality, the instructor's pants might have been sweating from fear if he'd seen Kang's terrifying face. But Kang, back in reality, just scratched his ear, deciding it wasn't worth starting a fight. His ear probably stank, too. That's when Kim called out to the instructor. Clapping his hands, he grabbed everyone's attention and announced that there would be a sparring match between Kang and the instructor's junior. Both Kang and the instructor were surprised by this. Kim handed his sword to the junior and told him to be careful while sparring with Kang. Hearing this, Kang gave a smirking smile, while the junior remained clueless, wondering why he had to be careful with a newbie. Kim started the countdown. 3, 2, 1, and the fight began. The instructor's junior was a bit serious, but Kang had a big, battle-fanatic smile on his face. As soon as the countdown ended, Kang dashed towards the junior, his eyes glowing with excitement. With a single strike, even though Kang didn't use more than 10% of his power, the instructor's sword shook. Kang lifted his sword into the air, and with one strike, he sent the junior's sword flying. The instructor was shocked, and the sword flew into the air, only to fall down next to the junior's head moments later. The entire place went silent, everyone in awe. Kim took this moment to explain to everyone, no matter how bad your sword skill or any other weapon skill is, if you have power, you can defeat your opponent. Hearing this, Kang thought the instructor was praising him. With a proud smile, he started laughing. But Kang didn't understand a damn thing. The instructor was actually making fun of his sword skill. Kim then pushed his junior forward, helped him up, and apologized. Looking at Kang with a dead serious face, Kim told the junior, "I just had to check one thing, and now I've got my answer." Then we see a change. Kang had started keeping a diary. Day 1, a psycho guy named Yusong sat in front of me and kept following me around like a lost puppy. During the training session, an instructor tried to pick a fight with me, and I had to show him his place. Day 2, the whole day was full of boredom. I was just dozing off in theory class, and in the evening during the practical class, no one dared to challenge me after what happened with the instructor. All the instructors were more worried about Yusong as started jiggling his sword with his feet. Day 3, both Yusong and I were knocked out in both classes. And since sparring was prohibited, we started playing pretend sparring without actually clashing our swords. By now, all the instructors were genuinely worried about us. Day 4, I was so bored that I doodled a picture of myself slaughtering a goblin in my diary. During the practical session, I picked up 2 swords and made them fight each other. The instructor didn't know how to handle me. Day 5, I was bored to death. I just wanted one thing, to go home. In the evening, during the training session, I was lying down on the field, arms spread out, sleeping. When the instructor asked what I was doing, I told him I was meditating. Day 6. I officially died from boredom. I started asking Yu-Song to cause some trouble. I told him if I stayed in this mental asylum for another day, they'd have to carry my body home on the 7th day. But then Yu-Song, with that creepy smile, said, "You don't have to be bored anymore. Today is day 6 and the 1v1 sparring session starts. I'll show you something special this evening. If that special thing is what I think it is, I don't want to see it at all." Evening came and the 1v1 practical class started. Kang in an instant defeated his opponent. Kang came to his place, sat down, and Yu-Song congratulated him. But as Kang continued to watch the sparring matches, he felt like he was watching kindergarten kids brawl. He was getting bored again. Then the fight between two candidates started. Candidate number 1 screamed and charged with a spear at candidate number 2, who panicked and froze in fear. But before the spear could hit, Kim, like a flash, stopped the spear instantly. The fight ended there, and I thought, time's running out, I need to fight him. Finally, it was Yu-Song's turn. He got up slowly, turned around, and said to me, "I'm going out," with that creepy smirk. Kong knew something was about to go down. Yu-Song started walking onto the stage, and Kong remembered what he said in the morning, that he'd show him something interesting during sparring. Kong got a little tense and thought, is Yu-Song about to cause some trouble? If he is, Instructor Kim better stop him, right? Now, Kim and a girl named Yuri stood facing each other. Yuri was a mage and had brought her personal staff. Kim asked Yu-Song if he had any problems, since warriors are at a disadvantage against mages who attack from a distance. Yu-Song, with a smile, said he had no problem. Kim noticed the massive thorny mesh weapon Yu-Song held and asked why he chose that instead of a sword. Yu-Song simply replied, "There's no rule that says you can only use one weapon, right?" Kim didn't pay much attention to it and started the match. With the countdown of 3, 2, 1, the match began. Yuri quickly formed a bunch of magic crystals and launched them at Yu-Song. Yu-Song swung his mesh, effortlessly shattering all the crystals. The shards fell on Yu-Song's face, and with that psychopathic grin, he started laughing. Kong was a little surprised, but he was even more amazed to see magic in real life. Kong always loved mages since he was a kid, but Yuri wasn't amused. She was a genius mage and couldn't believe a warrior could deflect her attack so easily. She poured all her energy into forming a massive magic crystal above her, then hurled it at Yu-Song. But Yu-Song wasn't focused on the crystal. He looked at her with his left eye, lifted his mesh into the air, and stepped back. With a psychopathic battle maniac laugh, he started spinning his mesh. Kong realized what Yu-Song was about to do. He struck the magic crystal missile precisely, spinning it around with brute force, and then redirected it toward Kim. Kim dodged it with a swift step, but Yu-Song's real target wasn't Kim. While Kim was distracted, Yu-Song dashed toward Yuri. Kim realized what was happening, but it was too late. Yu-Song reached Yuri and with a savage blow smashed her face with his mesh. Blood splattered everywhere. Yuri collapsed, her hand lying on the floor, fingers broken, blood streaming from her wounds. She wasn't moving, and Yu-Song stood there, drenched in her blood. As he wiped the blood from his face, he flashed that psychopathic, creepy smile and said, "That was damn satisfying." After that, we see the junior instructor in a panic, frantically calling for an ambulance. He yells that there's a critical open fracture. The hand is broken into pieces, and there are multiple injuries with heavy bleeding. The scene shifts, and we see the junior instructor checking on poor Yuri, who is so badly injured that she can't even speak. She was trembling all over. Meanwhile, Yu-Song stands there with a smirk on his face. Kim, with a dead serious look and a deep voice, pulls out his dagger and demands, "What do you think you just did?" Yu-Song casually raises his hand and says, "No need to get angry. It was just an accident. It's in the rules. Accidents happen. And since I didn't kill her, it's not a big deal, right?" Kim, furious, shouted, "Do you really think I'm gonna believe that bullshit?" Yu-Song just blinks, which made Kim even more disgusted, but he sighs in frustration and announces, "We're taking a 20-minute break," then calls Yu-Song over to a corner. "Ew, did Kim really take Yu-Song for what I'm thinking?" Meanwhile, Kong notices Kim's dagger and gives it a curious look. He realizes it's the same dagger guy that helped take down that ugly-ass goblin. Kang's suspicion was right. Kim was the one who assisted with the goblin. 2 days pass, and the sparring sessions continue. Kang is bored out of his mind, sitting in his seat, while Yu-Song, after the incident, is a terror in the ring. Every cadet who comes to fight him either faints out of fear or gives up immediately. By the 8th day, Kong's patience finally snaps. He storms into Kim's office with an excited face and says, "The training session is ending in 2 days. Let's duel with real swords." Kim, already frustrated and dealing with Yusong's antics, just stares at Kang with tired eyes. He finally lowers his head and says, "Yusong's already made my life hell. Please don't make it worse." Kong pauses, then says, "I know you're bored babysitting these kindergarten kids every day. Don't you want a real fight?" Kang, with a chilling dark aura, suddenly appears behind Kim and whispers, "We've met before, haven't we?" The next thing you know, they're in the auditorium, ready to spar with real swords. Kim thanks Kong, saying, "If he hadn't been there, a lot of people would have died." Kong modestly replies, "It was his duty." But deep down, he's thinking, Kim will not want to take the item he got by popping the ugly ass's ass right. Kim then notices Kang's long black sword and asks, "That's a pretty impressive sword you've got there. As far as I remember, clearing stage 6 gives you a unique sword, right?" Kang, trying to play it cool, lies, "Yeah, I found it lying on the road." Kim, not buying it for a second, opens his inventory and pulls out his dual daggers. With a dead serious face, he says, "These daggers? I found them lying on the road too." With that, he suddenly leaps from his position, disappearing in a flash, and slashes at Kang with lightning speed. Kang barely manages to turn around and block the attack. Kim laughs and says, "I thought you focused only on strength, but it seems your speed is impressive too." Kang grins and replies, "I know this isn't your full speed, and since I've got recovery speed, you can come at me with everything you've got." Hearing this, Kim smirks. "If that's the case, I won't hold back." He disappears again, this time moving so fast that Kang can barely keep up. Kim strikes from all directions, his daggers almost a blur, but Kang, with a creepy, satisfied smile and glowing red eyes, is loving it. "This is what I was missing!" Kim cuts him from all directions, but Kang's wounds heal almost instantly. Realizing how strong Kang's healing ability is, Kim gets more serious. He plans to put his dagger on Kang's neck, expecting Kang to dodge so he can go for the stomach, but Kang surprises him. Instead of dodging, Kang puts his hand in front of the dagger, letting it get stuck between his bones. Kim, shocked, tries to pull his dagger back, but it was stuck. Kang, with that death-creepy chillin' smile, says, "Got you now, baby!" And before Kim can react, Kang pulls him in close and headbutts him hard. Kim spits out blood and is momentarily knocked unconscious. His glasses go flying as he crumples to the ground. After a few seconds, Kim comes to, realizing he's lost. Time passes and we see Kang sipping on a Coke with an ice pack on his head. Kim, still recovering, admits, "I didn't think you were this strong." Kong grins. "That sparring match was a draw because of my passive regeneration skill." Kim teases, "Which means I won." Kang gets flustered, insisting, "It was a draw. I didn't use my passive skill on purpose." They bicker playfully for a moment before Kim sighs. "Thanks, Kang. I've been so tired of pampering these kids for months. This was the most fun I've had in ages." He then tells Kang to get some rest, reminding him that tomorrow is Dungeon Exploration Day. Meanwhile, outside the academy, a mysterious man in a black hoodie stands by the dungeon entrance. He looks left and right, then vanishes into the shadows as the door opens. The door closes behind him, leaving only the dark, ominous entrance to the dungeon. It's morning and everyone's lined up in front of a dungeon. Kong steps forward and explains, "This place has been designated as an educational dungeon by the Awakener Ability Training School. Welcome to Ephraim Dungeon, Geeka's Forest." He continues, "The monsters here are called Geekas and they're tougher than the usual Ephraim Dungeon monsters. But this place was chosen for training for 2 reasons. First, it's a field-type dungeon, so there won't be any traps or hidden dangers, just monsters. Second, it's pretty easy to lure Geekas and take them on one by one." Kim steps up, opens the dungeon door and says, "I'll give you the rest of the info once we're inside." Kang takes a deep breath and steps through the entrance. This was his first time entering a dungeon, and he was feeling a mix of nerves and excitement. As soon as he stepped in, Kang felt a weird sensation, like he was floating for a second while passing through the door. When he opened his eyes, he found himself in a completely different place. A lush, green forest. Sure, it was a dungeon, but it looked more like a freaking picnic spot. As they walked, Kong, still taking it all in, asked Yusong, "So, if we go out through the dungeon gate, we'll be back on Earth, right?" Yusong, rolling his eyes, replied, "Bro, they taught us all this in theory class. You should know that by now." Kong, a bit annoyed, turned to him and said, "Why are you talking to me? I don't want people thinking a hot, handsome guy like me is hanging out with a psycho." Yusong, not missing a beat, mumbled, You're the one who started talking to me first." After a bit, Kim gathered everyone in one spot and instructed one of his juniors to go fetch a Geeka monster. As they waited, Kim explained, "Geeka is a bird-type monster. It's a little over 2 meters tall, looks kinda like an ostrich. It's got quick feet and a beak strong enough to break through plated armor. A direct hit from that beak? Well, let's just say it won't be pretty, so stay alert. The standard strategy is to surround it with several people and tie its feet." Before Kim could continue, everyone suddenly received a notification. A message popped up in front of them, stating that the central core of the dungeon had been removed. A portal to the outside had opened, and the dungeon was about to collapse. The ground started shaking, and the sky above them began to crack. Panic spread like wildfire. Everyone was freaked out, thinking if they didn't get out soon, they'd be trapped in the dungeon forever. But Kim, keeping his cool, shouted, "Everyone stay calm! The dungeon doesn't break immediately, we've got at least an hour, so move out in an orderly fashion." Everyone listened, and one by one they started heading out. But nobody knew who the hell destroyed the dungeon's core. Kim couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. A chilling aura hung in the air. And then, just as the last of them were stepping out, the dungeon started shaking violently. Sparks flew from inside, and the fear hit everyone like a ton of bricks. Kim's face paled, but he didn't waste a second. He whipped around, screaming, "Get moving! Send word to HQ for backup! Get all the trainees out of here now!" He shouted, "It's a dungeon break!" But even as he was shouting orders, Kim was putting the pieces together in his head. If the temporary core was removed, the dungeon should have broken in 3 to 4 days. That means someone must have removed the temporary core a few days ago. And just now, someone disguised as a student with us destroyed the permanent core to cause this dungeon break. Then confused Kong came running, clearly confused, asks, "What the hell is going on?" Kim, already on edge, was about to explain, but then shouted, "I taught this in theory class. I don't have time to explain in detail right now. All you need to do is kick some ass." Just as Kim finished, a monster burst out of the dungeon, and without another word, Kim bolted, trusting Kang to handle the situation. But Kang, still trying to make sense of everything, kept shouting after him, "Wait, explain the dungeon break." As Kang turned back around, he saw a swarm of monsters charging straight at him, practically begging to get their asses handed to them. The sight of it made Kang's excitement skyrocket. He could hardly contain himself when suddenly a voice caught his attention. "Include me too, big brother." Kang spun around to see Yu Song dashing in, smashing monsters left and right. It surprised Kang just how much power Yu Song packed. As Yu Song crushed a monster's head, the blood splattered all over his face. With his mouth wide open, saliva drooling, he laughed like a maniac. As expected, crushing it with a mace is really the best. On the other hand, Kong felt disgusted watching Yu Song's crazed expression, thinking, "Damn, this guy is disgusting." But little did he know he made the exact same face when he was smashing goblins. But Kang admits, it's kinda comforting to have a psycho like Yu Song on his side. While Yu Song's absolutely destroying the birds, Kang pulls out his sword from his inventory and dashes in to get some fun too. With ease, he cuts the head off one of the monsters, smiles, and then instantly starts going berserk, taking out the birds at a crazy speed. Yu Song, surprised, watches as Kong tells him, "Cover your ears!" Kang's about to unleash lion's roar, calling the Geeka chicken-headed bastards. All the birds instantly have their stats drop, and their morale takes a nosedive. Kim looks over, and the other students notice that the monsters seem weaker. Kim realizes it must be due to Kang's skill, wondering if it has a debuff effect. He notes that support will soon arrive, and things seem to be going smoother than expected. But there's a problem. Kang then uses Magic Explosion, creating a swirling blue light in his hand that explodes, blowing one of the birds' heads off, but also badly injuring his own hand. He wonders, what kind of shit skill is this? But he's fine thanks to his self-healing. Nobody else could use it other than himself. Yu Song, still surprised, asks, "Did you just use magic?" Kong, with a smirk, says, "It's a skill I acquired a while ago." Yu Song asks if it's from the tutorial, but Kong keeps it mysterious, saying, "It's a secret." Suddenly, they both notice the ground beginning to shake as a giant, red, thick-ass Geeka appears behind the others. It's a mutant Geeka, a boss monster. Kim realizes this is bad news, as the reinforcements haven't arrived yet. No matter how strong Kong and Yu Song are, dealing with small fries is totally different from facing this monster. And it's the first time both of them are dealing with a real monster, at least for Yu Song. But we can't say the same for Kong. Yu Song, seeing the thick chicken ass, pauses for a moment, words failing him, his body shaking, and the next moment, boy oh boy, Yusong, with that pervy, blushing, creepy smile, starts saying, Bro, that's mine! Please, let me have it! Meanwhile, Kong, licking the chicken's blood from his mouth, his eyes gleaming with green, starts laughing maniacally too, shouting, I'm gonna eat that thick ass alive! Oh yeah. Then the scene shifts, and we see someone talking to Kim, asking about the accident during the dungeon practice today. Kim confirms it, explaining that someone broke into the training dungeon and intentionally set off a dungeon break. It's speculated that this is an extension of the dungeon terror that's been happening since last month. The woman ponders, asking if there were any trainees who stood out. Kim nods, saying, Yeah, there were 2 of them. They're the ones who dealt with the dungeon boss. We flash back to Kang and Yusong, brutally smashing the chicken to its core, both of them standing there, clothes covered in blood, laughing maniacally. The woman, curious, biting her goddamn soft, silky lips, says, Oh, Kim continues, saying that one of them has overwhelming physical strength. His speed, agility, pretty much everything about him is at a monstrous level. But his greatest strength, his healing power, not only his endurance, but also his recklessness, without any fear of getting hurt, resulting in unpredictable tactics, which could be the hardest thing for an enemy to deal with. The other one is completely different from Kang. Kim wonders if he should call him a genius, saying that he's a trainee born with excellent fighting sense. His quick reflexes and tactical proficiency are outstanding, but his overly cruel nature is a big flaw. The woman, disregarding that last bit, says it's rare for Kim to praise someone that much, asking if he made a recruitment offer. Kim says, it's illegal to scout the trainees when you're an instructor, and she calls him as inflexible as usual. He laughs, saying it's natural for employees to resemble their boss's personality, as he calls her their guild leader. Then, after 3 goddamn boring conversations, we finally get to see the woman's face. And I gotta say, she's waifu material. We learn that this is Seon, who was mentioned earlier in the story. She says it's good to be an instructor, but asks him to return to the guild soon. This accident feels very strange to her, and Kim says he understands. The scene shifts again, and we see that it's finally the 10th day. The principal is giving a lecture, and Kang finally gets his Awakener certification. But as soon as he and Yusong reach the main door, he notices a goddamn white, sparkling limousine. A man steps out of the car and says, Master, please get in. And Kong, surprised, asks Yusong, Were you born with a silver spoon? Yusong smiles and tells Kong to get in, saying he'll take him home. Kong thanks him, then gets into the car, saying he's never ridden in a car like this before. Just then, Kim calls out to Kong from behind. Kong turns around and once again mispronounces Kim's name as Kring. By now, Kim's used to Kang's weak memory, so he just laughs it off. Kang, feeling that Kim came to say goodbye, says, You're surprisingly the affectionate type. Kim sighs, saying, It's not like that, but sure, let's say it is. He adds that the dungeon break accident that happened yesterday, and the clear rewards will be given to both of them. As Kim turns back to leave, Kang, flustered, screams for him to wait, asking, Is that all you've got to say? At least give some words of gratitude. Kim sighs, telling Kang that he knows he's strong, and that he's probably going to keep getting stronger. He's sure they won't have to wait long before they meet in a dungeon again soon. But he reminds Kang to never forget his responsibility as a person with abilities, because now he's an ability user. We see Kang, with a very serious face, showing off his new card while it's stuck to his forehead like an idiot, asking Juhi if she sees his potential. But Juhi doesn't give a damn. She's just watching Asura recaps and was even subscribed to the channel like you all are, right? Right? She's on her phone, sarcastically saying, Yeah, it's so great and admirable. Kong, feeling a little too proud, tells her that her arrogant behavior should stop starting today because from tomorrow onwards, he's going to run through all the dungeons in the area. Then he pauses, thinking, How the hell am I supposed to get there? Can I find a dungeon by searching on the map? Juhi smirks and says there's an app for that called Radar. Kong, now impressed, calls her a genius. But Juhi, confused and worried about Kang, thinks, although Kang was a loser and weak before, he wasn't this dumb. Did he gain muscle in place of his IQ? Kang explains that he did some research, reading about the app, which talks about dungeon maps, monster information, and even recruiting party members. He mentions that Gekka's Forest is an F-rank dungeon, and he wonders if he can handle it on his own. He thinks he can make a lot of money and maybe even brag to his mom about it. A month flies by, and the news announces that the reward for clearing the lowest grade F-rank dungeon is 20 million won. The magic stones, which are attracting attention as a new energy source, are said to be dropped by monsters. We then hear Kang's father asking his mother if she's heard from Kong lately, mentioning that he got a license or something last month. She then tells him that Kong actually sent them 10 million as pocket money, and it looks like they even got a used car last week. The dad, surprised, says, "Now, Kang earns more than his old man," and he laughs. But his mother, putting down the plate, is worried. She's heard that a lot of people get hurt and die in these dungeons, and she wonders if something bad might happen. The dad tries to reassure her, saying it's better for Kang to be doing this than being unemployed. On the TV, they say that when you go into a dungeon, you should form a team. The father says, "Kang's not the type to do things recklessly, so it'll be fine, I guess." She reluctantly agrees, saying that Kang's always been smart since he was young. Meanwhile, Kang was raiding dungeons alone. Well, his parents didn't know Kang had become Deadpool and had a Minecraft bed to respawn. And Kang? He was busy popping some tarantula's cherries with his psycho smile, blood all over his face. Outside the dungeon, we see his car, which he's lovingly named Butley. His phone is ringing, but he's not answering. His mother, worried, says he must be sleeping or something, and the father suggests she just call him tomorrow. She agrees, but says to make sure to tell him about that thing in front of the supermarket. Then we get a close look just in front of Kang's parents' house. A freaking creepy, worn-down gate appeared. And the exact moment it opened, with a creak, a chilling aura came pouring out from the dungeon. And just a few moments later, some damn sons of goblins and orcs started marching down in the thousands. But that wasn't the end. A freaking, thick, huge-ass goblin was also marching from behind. The scene shifts, and we see Kang coming out of the dungeon, having cleared it solo, saying, "Nothing's better than kicking some ass." He heads toward his car, opens it, and picks up his phone, noticing there are 36 freaking missed calls from Juhi. The phone rings one more time, and Kang, curious, picks it up. On the other end, Juhi's voice is shaking. She's crying and saying something bad happened. She explains how a dungeon opened near Mom and Dad's house and that they're in danger. Hearing this, Kang's face goes dark, dead serious, his eyes wide open. The scene shifts, and we see Juhi still shaken and worried, telling Kong not to go alone. But for the first time, Kong, acting like a damn big bro with a kind and polite tone, reassures her, saying, "No need to worry. Who do you think I am?" Turning back with confidence, Kong reassures Juhi again, saying, "Even though I might look like a loser at times, I cleared stage 8, which only 3 people have done in Korea. So all you need to do is trust your brother." Juhi is still tense but waves Kong goodbye, saying, "Please take care and don't lose your cool." Kong waves back, telling her not to worry, but as soon as he closes the door and sits in his car, his face turns dead serious, like he's about to devour all the orcs alive. The scene shifts again, and we see the military stopping Kang, telling him he can't proceed any further and that he should turn back. Kang says he's an ability user and asks if he can go through. They try to tell him he might die if he goes alone, but another man steps in and tells them to let him through. They're low on manpower, and any ability user is welcome, but they won't be responsible for anything that happens afterward. Kong understands and thanks them for their hard work. As he moves through the woods, Kang notes that there are at least 5 confirmed dungeon breaks, with an E rank mixed in. He hopes his parents are safe and holding up well, wondering if he'll arrive on time. Just then, a big-ass boar rams into the side of his car, sending him flying off the road and crashing into a nearby tree. As we see the boar's eyes glowing red, there's a brief silence. Then Kang stretches out of the car, crawling out, muttering, "What bad luck! This fucking pig just ruined Butley." He draws his blade, saying he will avenge his beloved comrade. The pig starts to growl at him. Kang looks up, realizing it's actually quite big. Then he hears a screeching sound and glances over to see a big group of green asses running in. They're all goblins, heading straight toward him. Kang wonders if he burned down a goblin country in his past life or something, because just when he thinks he's forgotten about them, they show up and cause trouble. Forget about winning. He doesn't have time to deal with all of them. He starts to run, saying, "They say the best revenge is forgiveness," and tells the pig, "I gotta go. Have a good time." As the pig growls, we see a volley of arrows flying from its side. Kang's plan worked. He intentionally ran toward the goblins so that their arrows would hit the huge-ass pig, and it worked. Like that, the pig and goblins start killing each other, and Kang watches from the side with a satisfied look on his face. After that, Kang starts running, saying, "Now that Butley is gone, I can't waste time on unnecessary things." Night falls, and Kang's phone is broken, his battery nearly dead. He had to save it, so he did the unthinkable, trusted Google Maps to navigate through the jungle, but he got lost. Just then, he hears a weird sound in the woods, and we see something slowly approaching him from behind. As he turns, making eye contact with it, Kang instantly slices with his sword, and only blood follows. It was an invisible wolf called a disrufin. Once it falls to the floor, Kang is surprised, saying, "I didn't think there were monsters that could turn invisible too," and realizes he won't be able to sleep comfortably tonight. As even more begin to circle him, slowly revealing a whole horde of them, he readies his blade, instantly slicing multiple times, slaughtering them like a killing machine. After he's done with the slaughter, he spits out the blood that got into his mouth, sighs, and then does his signature move. His eyes go red like he's smoked marijuana all night, his whole body covered in blood, holding a bloody sword with his psychopathic smile, saying, "I can do this all day, all night." Morning comes, and we see hundreds of wolf corpses thrown around like trash all over the jungle. Kang fought the entire night without resting, but now he's laying on top of a tree. For some reason, as soon as morning came, the wolves stopped coming and he managed to sleep for an hour. On the other hand, at Kang's mom and dad's apartment, we see his mom read the text Kang sent. He wrote that he would be reaching home very soon and requested them to lock the door and stay safe. Still scared, Kang's mom calls his dad, who tells her to lower her voice. It might attract the monster. They start to whisper, worried. Mom asks, "Is it really okay for Kang to come here?" Dad, also worried, tells her to call Kang and tell him not to come, but she explains that Kang's phone is switched off. So Dad says, "It's okay, nothing will happen. I know my son is strong." But inside, he's also worried. Outside their house, there are hundreds of thick, muscular green monsters. Can their weak little Kang really kill them? Worried sick, Kang's dad glances out the window, but what he sees shocks him to his core. Outside, Kang is standing, soaked in goblin blood, covered in a dark aura, holding an ogre by its head. And in an instant, Kang crushes the skull like a balloon. Then, with a demonic smile, his face full of blood, he starts laughing maniacally, thinking, "Orcs are just a warm-up for me. Mom, Dad, your adorable little son has arrived." On the other hand, Kang's dad, seeing Kang in that terrifying state, shouted, "What the hell? Where did such a terrifying creature come from?" Kang laughs, saying, "I can handle an F-rank dungeon solo, so dealing with these orcs is a piece of cake." As more orcs approach, he adds, "Keep 'em coming, it's not even tiring." Then he spots 3 orc warriors among the horde. Each one of them could be a boss monster on its own. Suddenly he realizes, this must be an E-rank dungeon, not F-rank. He yells out, "Hey Mom! Dad, I'm coming to get you, just stay put and don't make a sound." His parents hear his voice, and his father mutters, "It can't be Kang's voice, right? I just saw a terrifying monster out there." But his mother, recognizing it instantly, says, "No, that's Kang." They peek out the window, carefully scanning the area. Kang's father realizes it really is him, but he's shocked. Kang looks like a human covered in blood, almost double his size from before, and that demonic smile, it sends chills down his spine. Meanwhile, Kang charges straight at the 3 orc warriors as they let out a war cry. He swings his blade, trading blow for blow with one of them. Another orc lunges from the side, thrusting its sword. Kang ducks beneath it, charging a magic explosion in his hand, and slams it right into the orc's face, gripping its head like a basketball. The explosion sends the orc's body collapsing to the ground. Before Kang can catch his breath, another orc leaps at him, swinging its weapon. Kang catches the blade with his hand, but the force fractures his wrist. It hurts, but not enough to stop him. He counters, stabbing the orc in the throat. With the orc impaled on his blade, Kang twists his body and hurls it into the 3rd orc like he's playing orc bowling. The orc warrior falls flat on its back, looking up at Kang in a vulnerable position. Kang, with a wicked grin, shoves his fist into the orc's mouth and says, "Magic explosion." The blue light glows from within, and the orc's head pops like a balloon, splattering blood everywhere. Kang sits atop the pile of dead orcs, blood, both his and theirs, dripping onto the ground. But he knows this is just the beginning. A whole tribe of orc warriors surrounds him, hundreds of them. Then he hears heavy footsteps and looks up to see a giant orc towering over the rest. It's an orc general. The orc general lets out a deep, menacing laugh. Kang, unimpressed, mutters, "So, you're the boss? Damn, you're ugly." He wanted to save his magic for regeneration, but it seems that's not an option anymore. He activates his giant's power, boosting his strength by 60%, and takes a deep breath, unleashing his lion's roar. "Let's see what you're made of!" He charges at the orc general. The orc general lands a blow on Kang's face, sending blood flying from his nose and knocking him back. Kang bumps into some of the other orc warriors, who immediately toss him back at the boss like a rag doll. Kang realizes, "This bastard's toying with me," as he gets knocked around, then kicked hard in the chest, sending him crashing to the ground. He struggles to stand, gripping his blade tightly. "I can't back down, not while my family is just behind me." The orc general is surprised at Kang's determination, fighting so hard on the brink of death. Kang screams, charging again, only to hear his mother's scream in the distance. He turns, seeing orcs climbing up to their window. Panic sets in, and Kang, with his bruised face and swollen eye barely open, uses his lion's roar and with all his might shouts, "You cannot go there, you fucking bastards! I'll pop all your cherries if you do!" He rushes toward his parents to save them, but gets grabbed by the orcs. He fights back, cutting off their arms and heads, but as he sprints forward, the orc general's huge hand grabs Kang by the head. Kang struggles, unable to move, and with a bam, the orc general smashes Kang's face into the ground, laughing maniacally with a satisfied smile. Kang, bloodied and barely conscious, whispers, "I can't let them get to my parents," as he stretches his shaking hand out, tears streaming down his face. His vision fades, his body grows cold, and he loses consciousness and dies. But just then, a flurry of attacks slices the orc general into 4 pieces. It's none other than our waifu, who's just arrived. Afterward, her guild members arrive, saying they've also killed all the remaining orcs. She asks about the residents, and they explain they're prioritizing evacuating the injured and ensuring the rest are safe. She sighs, saying, "The damage was huge, but thanks to someone gathering the orcs in one place, it wasn't as bad as it could have been." She looks over at Kang, saying, "That's him, right? The one who was facing hundreds of orcs alone until we arrived?" She's impressed, but adds, "Unfortunately, that person died." As she's about to instruct them to take care of Kang's body with utmost care, she notices the body is gone, vanished, leaving only his clothes behind. Meanwhile, we see Kang suddenly jolt awake, his eyes wide open. Well, Kang turned out to be just a frog in an F-rank well, and I can bet his villainous arc will begin if his parents die. Kang is perched on a tree branch, the same spot where he last slept. Suddenly, the system notifies him his Z-rank skill, Resurrection, has been used. Since there was no specific resurrection location set, he resurrected at the last place he slept. As a penalty, Kang's level drops by 1, and all his stats are decreased by 50%. Just then, with a bolt of realization, Kang understands what this means. He died and failed to protect his parents. He clenches his fists, feeling the weight of his failure. Grabbing his blade, he's determined to get back there immediately. As he drops from the tree, he feels the difference in his stats and mutters, "Damn, my body feels heavy." He starts running, his mind racing. "Please be alive! Please be alive!" He keeps repeating to himself. But as soon as Kang reaches the building, he notices the place is completely deserted, his parents' house included. After wandering all night, he stumbles upon a military unit and borrows a phone from an officer to contact Kim. Only then does he get the devastating news. His father had his arms amputated, and his mother is in a coma. Kang, furious, shatters the phone in his hand. 2 months later, the news reports on the Dogon Guild hunting a boss in the D-rank dungeon, Devil's Anus. They mention that Kyan, the guild leader, also talked about a new C-rank dungeon that recently appeared. Juhi, looking concerned, asks Kang if he's heading to a dungeon again. Without hesitation, but with a hint of sadness still in his voice, Kang says, "Yes." Juhi, worried, says, "You've already died 3 times this week." But Kang, unbothered, tells her he's fine. As he walks away, she tries to tell him it's not his fault his parents ended up like that, but he closes the door and leaves, her concern evident. As Kang descends the stairs, Juhi steps outside the door, watching him go with a worried expression, thinking if she had cleared higher in the tutorial, she might have been able to do something. Inside a dungeon, we see a giant ant called Antria being killed by a man with a spear. He levels up, getting hyped, and is congratulated by his party for being the ace. The guy internally brags, thinking he's too good to hang out with losers like them, but soon he'll be level 35 and ready to join the Dogon Guild. Suddenly, they spot someone running toward them. It's Kang. The guy warns him that the core room is ahead and it's dangerous. but Kang ignores him and keeps running. The group decides to follow, curious about what he's up to. Kang, standing in front of an army of huge ants, all ready to devour him, is not messing around this time. With a serious face, standing tall with his long sword, he activates his skill, Wayne's Secret. Veins start to bulge on his face, electricity crackles around him, and Kang starts to growl like he's about to unleash a Chidori. Wayne's secret ability increases all stats by 40% except mana when activated, but over time, the user's body will deteriorate. As the ants leap on top of Kang, he gives them a death stare and begins a mass slaughter, his villainous smile spreading across his face. Meanwhile, the cocky level 35 guy and his crew reach the scene and are absolutely shocked. Their mouths hang open in disbelief as they witness Kang single-handedly slaughtering the ants. Kang approaches the dungeon core, saying he'd just acquired Wayne's secret yesterday, and it synergizes well with his regeneration skill. This skill burns his body all the time, but with his self-healing, his physical regeneration has reached rank A. Now, even if his hand gets cut off, it will regenerate. "Man, I'm telling you, he's becoming Deadpool day by day," he muses. Just then, the cocky guy calls out to Kang from behind and asks if he's really okay. Kang replies, "I'm so much better I could dance!" Hearing this, they exchange glances, and Kang grabs the dungeon core, a normal core, puts it in his inventory, and says, "If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave. Now please get out of my way." With that, Kang leaves without another word. They ask if he's not going to collect the magical crystals from the corpses, but he says he doesn't need them, it's all theirs, and leaves, thinking he doesn't have time to waste. He wants to become the strongest. The group instantly starts collecting the mana crystals, wondering how much money they're going to get. The spear guy turns around, giving Kang one last glance before they leave. Sometime later, one of them asks who that man was. The cocky guy replies, "Why does it matter? We're earning a lot of money, and that's the important thing." He tells her not to get so caught up on it, as there are different types of people everywhere. The important thing is that they earned a few days' worth of money at once, all thanks to him. One of the other members suggests that maybe it's that guy, the one who clears dungeons by himself. The spear guy says, "There's no way. Even if the rumor is real, the guy only cleared E-rank dungeons." He was about to dismiss the idea when suddenly the ground starts to shake. They all get status windows appearing in front of them, saying that the core has been removed and that the portal to the outside is now open. Meanwhile, in the boss room, hundreds of general ants lie dead, and Kang, like a demon king, is sitting on top of the queen ant's dead body, sighing. He's acquired yet another skill book called Antria's Outer Shell. When activated, it will harden his skin. Kang notes that Wayne's secret and his regeneration skill are already pushing his mana to the limit, and using this new skill would definitely drain him completely. He explains to himself that using many skills doesn't make you skilled. Mastering a skill by using it 10,000 times makes it useful. Kang still regrets that he wasn't strong enough to save his parents, and he swears, "I will become the strongest man alive on Earth." The scene shifts, and we see a bunch of reporters and scouts standing outside the dungeon. They're all buzzing with excitement, reporting on a rumor that's been flying around. A man has been clearing dungeons all by himself, and guess what? He was spotted entering this very dungeon today. But before they can even wrap up their reports, they hear something. Footsteps, slow and heavy. The sound makes everyone freeze. All heads turn, eyes wide, and what do they see? Kang, slowly emerging from the dungeon door. He looks frustrated, rubbing his neck and running his hand through his hair like he's trying to shake off whatever just went down inside. The moment he steps out, he's blinded by flashing lights. Reporters are snapping pictures like it's some kind of frenzy. Already frustrated, Kang feels his patience slipping. His head is about to explode. But before he can even say a word, the reporters rush in, swarming around him like hungry wolves. "Are you the new hunter who's been clearing dungeons solo? Look here, give us a comment." Some guild recruiters even shove cards in his face, trying to sweet-talk him with promises of benefits. But Kang doesn't give a fuck. He's got no interest in their offers. He's got one mission, to get stronger, to protect his family. So with a cold, dismissive tone, he shuts them all down. "I'm not interested," he mutters. "Don't know who this rumored rookie is that y'all keep talking about. Think whatever you want." He brushes them off and moves to walk away. But one reporter, he doesn't budge. And they collide. The reporter has the nerve to say, "Did you just bump into me? That's it!" That one little sentence was the final straw. Kang's patience, gone. His veins start pulsing, his face darkens, and in a booming voice he shouts, "What are you gonna do if I did? Huh?" His bloodthirsty glare alone makes the poor reporter's meat turn to jelly, and looks like he's about to wet his pants. Terrified, the reporter stammers out an apology, practically shaking in his boots. Kong doesn't even respond, just takes a deep breath, calming his frustration, and walks off without another word. As soon as he's gone, the whispers start. The reporters huddle together, gossiping. "Did you see that? He was about to murder that guy! He's definitely a dangerous underground gangster. We need to check if he has a criminal record." Meanwhile, Kang finally reaches the parking lot, standing in front of his car. Bunty number 2. Yeah, you heard that right. Kang's about to get in, still muttering under his breath about the reporters and guilds being such a headache when suddenly, someone calls out from behind. He turns, eyebrow raised. A middle-aged man, smiling politely, approaches him. The man hands Kong a card, his tone gentle. "No need to get defensive, Kong. I'm here to help." Kong takes the card, eyeing the man cautiously. "I'm from the Alliance Association. We've been watching you for some time now, and we'd like to offer you our full support. Whatever resources you need, we'll provide." Kang stays silent, just staring at the card. The man continues, smiling. "Take your time to decide. Our contact number is on the card. You don't need to give me an answer now." He bows politely and leaves Kang standing there, card in hand. Kang knows about the Alliance Association. They aren't like those profit-hungry guilds. They genuinely support hunters. But why are they interested in him? Later, Kong's sitting in a restaurant, slurping down some ramen, still pondering the offer. This association is huge. They don't just recruit anyone. Why him? He shrugs, pushing the thoughts aside for now. He'll deal with it later. As he slurps down his ramen, a little kid points at him. "Mom, look, that monster's eating ramen." The mom panics, trying to hush the kid, terrified that Kang might overhear them and eat her kid. Kang, meanwhile, is just focused on his ramen. He's finished 3 bowls already, thinking about the new skill he just acquired. Antony's body strengthening. It makes his skin as tough as steel. But Kang's mana is almost always drained because he's constantly using Viney's secret technique and regenerating his body. If he activates Antony's skill, he won't be able to use his other abilities freely. His biggest problem right now, he needs more mana. But increasing his mana capacity isn't something he can do instantly. He decides he needs to find an item that boosts mana. Kang pulls out his phone, browsing through shopping malls and equipment stores, but everything only increases his mana by 1 or 2 points. Completely useless. Just then, a Reddit post catches his eye. The post talks about an E-rank dungeon, Goblin Village, where you can defeat the shaman boss and get a magic ring that drastically increases your mana. The catch? The entire Goblin Village has to be wiped out mercilessly in front of the shaman, and only then will the ring drop. But there's another problem. A gangster has already claimed the dungeon. Kang leans back in his chair, slurping his ramen one last time. "Looks like I've got my next destination," he mutters with a smirk. While reading the details of this dungeon, Kong is already making his way toward it. The Reddit posts mention that this dungeon used to be a peaceful, quiet hunting ground. People would come here, kill goblin scouts, gather magic crystals, and make some cash. But recently, some unauthorized thugs decided to claim the land, arguing it's their territory and they won't let anyone else in. The government? They don't give a damn as long as the dungeon doesn't break. There are also reports that hunters who visited recently have disappeared. Kang reads all these comments on the Reddit post and finally arrives at the dungeon entrance. To his surprise, no one's guarding it. Well, Kang couldn't care less about guards anyway. With that, he opens the dungeon door and steps inside. But as soon as he exits the dungeon, he notices 2 boys and a girl standing there, eyeing him like prey. The girl smirks. "Well, well, another one for us to kill and loot. What luck." The other boy, grinning like a wolf, says, "We'll make a nice bonus today." Then the girl giggles. "I had a dream about a fat piggy the other day, and look, here he is, walking right in front of us." One of the boys, let's call him Chicken Head number 2, steps forward all cocky, saying, "Didn't you hear? This is Bait Guild territory. You're trespassing, buddy." Kong, clearly annoyed, rolls his eyes and says, "So what? Should I dance or something?" Hearing that, Musclehead and the girl start laughing. "When you enter someone else's territory without permission," Musclehead says, "you gotta pay the toll. Hand over all your gear and maybe we'll spare your life." Before they can say anything more, something whooshes past them, and in a blink, Chicken Head number 2 is sent flying backward, hitting the ground hard, unconscious and twitching, mouth foaming. The girl and Musclehead spin around, shocked. Chickenhead's body is trembling on the ground, completely knocked out. Kang, standing there, clearly pissed off, says nothing. The girl curses at him, drawing her sword, and Musclehead, too, pulls out his weapon, saying, "You're dead meat now, punk!" Musclehead leaps into the air, sword raised to slice Kong in half. But Kang? He casually grabs the sword with one hand, and with a crunch, snaps it in half like it's nothing. The next second, Kang delivers a brutal kick to Musclehead's stomach, sending him flying back. With a deep, cold voice, Kang says, "I really like people like you guys." He smirks. "You know why?" Then, with another jump, Kang lands on top of Musclehead, delivering a hard kick. "Because no matter how much I hit you guys, you don't feel bad." He's about to kick him again when, boom! A mana blast hits Kang from behind. He barely flinches, but it catches him off guard. He turns, glaring deadly at the girl who's holding her sword and trembling. Her face turns bright red as she stammers, "Stop it, you freak!" She's shaking so badly it looks like she might drop her weapon. Kang slowly turns around, his eyes narrowing. "Thanks for that," he says with a dangerous calmness. The girl's eyes widen in fear as she starts to realize what's about to happen. In the blink of an eye, Kang dashes toward her, grabbing her hand in what seems like a romantic gesture. Holding her hand, he pulls her closer and says, "You taught me something today, so let me teach you something in return." The girl's breath catches in her throat as Kang gives a sinister smile. "I'll show you how to properly use that mana blast of yours." With that, Kang activates his mana blast, and while still holding her hand, directs the full force inside her pussy. Directs the full force at her hands. The blast shatters her hand into pieces. She screams in agony, but Kong doesn't stop. Next, he grabs her feet and blasts them too. Now the girl is lying on the ground, writhing in pain, screaming at the top of her lungs. Kang, disgusted, wipes her blood off his hands. "Just a bunch of nobodies," he mutters. But then, Kong notices more figures standing behind him. He turns to see a group of people staring at him in anger, weapons drawn. One of them steps forward and says, "How dare you do this in Bait Guild's territory?" With weapons raised, they sneer at him. "You'll better say your goodbyes. You're not leaving here alive." Kang stares at them for a moment, silent. Then, with a ruthless smile and a deadly aura, he says, "That's perfect. I needed a guide anyway." And with that, we all know what's going to happen to the members of Beardkill. Go ahead and write RIP Bait Guild below. After that, we're thrown into a flashback. Let's call him Chickenhead number 3. We're shown how the tutorial changed his life. In these dungeons, power decides your rank. Violence and money are yours to take. The more violence you do, the more money you get. No one's there to stop you, and no one is like him. A guy who was just some useless person in society, stuck in that 9-to-5 grind, barely making ends meet. Now, he's living like a king. Money to burn, whatever food he wants, any place he wants to stay, and any girl he wants. Not only that, he's an executive of the Bait Guild, a huge guild. Life's been going so well in that dungeon, without a single fear in his heart. But today, something was different. This strange guy, Kang, appeared out of nowhere. Chickenhead number 3 was just doing his daily business, trying to rob Kang of his belongings. But before he even had time to think, bam! A punch right to his face. Next thing he knows, he's on the ground, mouth swollen, blood dripping out of his nose, eyes barely open. When he finally comes to, he sees Kong standing in front of a portal. The people around him are knocked out, and there's a small knife stuck in Kang's stomach. But Kang doesn't have a single scratch. Chickenhead number 3 is in shock, thinking, how did we lose to this one unarmed individual? Who the hell is this guy? Then we see Kang pull that knife from his stomach and, showing it off to all the others on the ground, he says in a deep, menacing voice, "Hey, you criminal freaks, I'll give you 5 seconds. All of you gather in front of me right now or I'll cut your little pee-pees." With a sinister look, Kang licks the blood off the knife and whispers, "Guide selection starts now." Then we cut to Kang picking out a fresh prey, Chickenhead number 4. Kang grabs him by the neck, wraps an arm around him like they're best friends, and tells the others, "I've chosen this guy to be my guide because I like his face. Everybody clap for him." But everyone just sits there, dead quiet, staring at Kang. Some are angry, some are shocked. Kang, he's not happy. He brings that knife right up to Chickenhead number 3's ear and whispers, "Clap." And just like that, Chickenhead number 3's pants start shaking, and with a trembling voice, he starts clapping. 5 long minutes of clapping later, Chickenhead number 3 gets curious and asks, "I did what you said. So what happens to the rest of us?" Kang pauses, smirks, and says, "Those guys, they gotta promise to quit all their bad deeds, or I'm gonna have to take care of them." Chickenhead number 3 and his pals, They're relieved, clapping as they swear they're turning over a new leaf. But then Kang smirks, and with a brutal punch, smashes Chickenhead number 3 in the face. His nose breaks, blood spills, and Kang doesn't stop. He keeps hitting, saying, "You lying scum! People like you just lie and go back to their ways. It's better if I put you down for good. You're evil, nothing but a dog's tail that'll never straighten out." Kang beats him so badly that Chickenhead number 4 is on the verge of wetting himself in fear. Time passes and we see Chickenhead number 3 lying there, bloody, his hand blue from all the hits. He's shivering, barely able to move. Meanwhile, Kang puts a hand on his neck and with a villainous aura he growls, "Guide me, take me to the dungeon's boss." Chickenhead number 3, tears in his eyes, just nods and starts leading the way. Later that afternoon, Chickenhead number 4 is explaining how most dungeons are small, but some are like hidden worlds inside, huge, maybe even city-sized. Kong, surprised, asks, "Really? This dungeon is that big?" As evening falls, they still haven't reached their destination. Kong, impatient, glares at Chickenhead number 4. "Are you trying to trick me?" Chickenhead number 4, terrified, insists, "I'm just taking us safely so we don't run into any monsters." Kong rolls his eyes. "Worrying about monsters? What a waste!" He points his sword right at Chickenhead number 4, giving him a deadly stare and commands, "Take me directly to the boss. I'm bored. Don't care if there's a monster in the way." But since it's already night, Kong suggests, "Let's camp here. I'm starving. First, we eat and rest, then we go." We cut to Kang around a campfire he set up, using 5 swords. Chickenhead number 4, frustrated, thinks, "Why does this guy carry so many damn swords?" Well, the thing was, all of these swords were the ones that the goblins had put inside Kang's body, but they were unable to take Kang down. Finally, the instant ramen's ready. Chickenhead number 4 brings it over, steaming hot. Kang grabs the bowl and digs in, burning his fingers but not giving a damn. After polishing off the ramen, Kang casually asks Chickenhead number 4 his name, his age, and just how he ended up in this mess of a dungeon. Chickenhead number 4's name? That'd be Sung Woo. He tells Kang he's 25, broke as hell, drowning in student loans, and couldn't even apply for a scholarship. He had to juggle a part-time job just to keep his house running, which meant no time to study. And if that wasn't enough, his dad's business went belly up, making his life even worse. But just as Sung Woo is about to reveal the shocking bit about his mom, Kang cuts him off, pulling a disgusted face. "Why the hell are you telling me your sob story? Gross? Wanna die?" he growls. Sung Woo gulps and figures it's best to shut up. Kong rolls his eyes and says, "Enough with the nonsense. Eat the ramen. We've got to get up early for that dungeon boss." They scarf down the ramen, put out the campfire, and lay down, Kang facing left, Sung Woo facing right. Some time passes. Sung Woo cracks an eye open, notices Kang's asleep, and quietly gets up, standing over him. He thinks, if I could kill Kang, then maybe... But memories of Kang brutally taking down his friends flash through his mind. The psychotic smile Kang wore as he left them half dead. Yeah, that idea goes out the window. Sung Woo decides maybe he'll just sneak off while Kang sleeps, his gut screaming at him not to mess with this guy. Just as he starts to tiptoe away, he hears, "Hey, Sung Woo! Where do you think you're going?" Kang's voice cuts through the silence. Sung Woo freezes. He stammers out an excuse. I just gotta pee!" Kang raises an eyebrow, smirking. "Pee right here. And if you even think of running, I'll bite your little pee-pee off and feed it to you." Sung Woo shudders, terrified, and does exactly as told, then crawls back to bed. The next morning, Sung Woo finally leads Kong to the Goblins' village. He points to a spot deep in the jungle, showing Kang rows of goblin huts. "That's it, the Goblins' village. The main core and the boss will be there," he says, hoping this is the end of it. Kang narrows his eyes, feeling the strong mana concentrated in the village. Sung Woo, confused, asks, "You can feel mana too?" Kang scoffs. "Are you weak as a rat? Can't even sense a little mana?" Sung Woo forces a smile, feeling useless and telling himself to keep calm. But from inside, Sung Woo is boiling. He's telling himself to wait. Just wait for the right moment and he'll teach this arrogant bastard a lesson. Kang, though, couldn't care less, just following behind as Sung Woo leads on. Sung Woo thinks to himself, "This dungeon is special. All the goblins have made a village out in the middle of the jungle, and most of them, about 95%, stay within the village. They only send 15-20 scouts out into the jungle. But he's brought Kang to the heart of it. where thousands of starving goblins are waiting. They'll tear Kang apart the second they see him. As they reach the village, Kang sees the goblins and instantly grins, revealing his teeth in a greedy, sinister smile. "Why not kill them all?" he mutters to himself, practically drooling at the sight. For him, thousands of goblins are a feast waiting to happen. Meanwhile, Sung-woo's confused as hell. Why is Kang happy? Thousands of goblins start charging toward Kang, and Kang gets ready, licking his lips. But then, suddenly, a bag comes flying over, landing right behind Kang. Kang whips around to see Sung-woo showing him the middle finger. "You're insane!" Sung-woo shouts, backing away. "Meeting you was the worst! Here's to hoping those goblins chew you up good, you crazy bastard!" And with that, Sung-woo takes off, praying the goblins will finish Kang off. Kang just smiles, giving a creepy, bloodthirsty stare and growls, "You're screwed, Sung-woo! Just wait till I'm done here!" Sung-woo keeps running for what feels like half an hour, finally stopping to catch his breath. He laughs, relieved. Left that psycho Kang alone with a village of starving goblins. Now that's justice. He figures Kang must be goblin food by now, imagining them tearing Kang apart. But just as he's reveling in his escape, a system notification pops up in front of his face. It reads, "Dungeon core destroyed, portal to exit opened." Sung-woo's face drops. He stares at the notification, reading it again and again. Is this a dream? Bro thinks he's safe, but he's about to find out it's a nightmare. So yeah, everyone, drop an RIP for Chickenhead number 4 in the comments. On the other hand, Sang-woo's condition is getting worse. He stands outside the dungeon exit, staring at his status window, his entire body shaking with fear, realizing the kind of monster he has messed with. Sang-woo's mind races, thinking about the impossible feat Kang must have accomplished. If a single hunter were to clear this entire dungeon alone, he'd have to kill thousands of goblins and orcs. And to do that, Sang-woo knows, one would need insanely overwhelming strength and endurance. But then reality hits hard. Inside the dungeon, Kang isn't just surviving, he's decimating everything. With brute strength and magic missiles, Kang is brutally slaughtering all the goblins and orcs, his body drenched in goblin blood. Yet Kang doesn't care. Instead, he's enjoying every second of it. Sang-woo thinks strength and endurance might be manageable, but what truly matters is overwhelming defense. Without it, no one could survive the relentless waves of goblins until the very end. But back in the dungeon, the reality is far from what Sang-woo imagines. Kang's defense is almost zero. Goblin blood covers him, yet Kang remains unfazed. Why? Because of his Deadpool-like regenerative ability? Sang-woo shudders, thinking even with immense defense, stamina is the final key. After killing thousands of goblins, any hunter's stamina would hit rock bottom, but Kang had enough stamina to kill Salmon King alone. Sang-woo begins to connect the dots. Kang has maxed out strength, endurance, defense, and stamina. The realization dawns, and Sang-woo's body starts shivering uncontrollably. His face turns pale as he whispers to himself, "Is Kang some kind of SS-rank hunter hiding his abilities?" The mere thought sends chills down his spine. Sang-woo always thought Kang was just a normal, average hunter, good at fighting, sure, but this was monstrous. Sang-woo starts trembling harder. Kang must be a strategic genius, he thinks. But inside the dungeon, the reality is far simpler. Kang has no strategy, no plan. He operates on one mantra: muscles are the greatest wisdom. Meanwhile, Kang's brutality reaches its peak. He's taken multiple rods and planted them into Salmon King's neck. Then, with unrelenting force, Kang punches Salmon King's mouth, follows it with a magic blast, and pops his head like a balloon. The dungeon system instantly notifies Kang, "You have killed Salmon King and cleared the dungeon." As a reward, Kang receives a D grade plus Salmon King's ring, with a durability of 50. The ring increases Kang's magic stat by +4 and boosts mana regeneration by 10%. Kang is ecstatic. He proudly slides Salmon King's ring onto his finger, smirking with satisfaction, declaring that his goal is achieved. It's time to leave the dungeon. As he exits, Kang muses with a psychopathic grin. "Now how should I deal with that fucker, Sang-woo?" But as soon as Kang steps out of the dungeon, he's shocked. Hundreds of people are standing there, fully armed with weapons and armor, waiting for him. Kang scans the crowd with disdain, muttering to himself, "Are they here to welcome me? Where are the damn sweets?" His glowing eyes finally spot Sang-woo within the crowd. Kang's face twists into his signature psychopathic smile. He stretches his muscles, making them ripple with malignant intent. "Should I break his legs first? Or his hands?" Kang growls, stepping forward with menace. But before Kang could act, a voice from behind halts him, saying there's been a big misunderstanding. Kang turns to his left and spots a man with gray hair approaching him. The man tells Kang they aren't here to fight, they're here to talk. He admits that maybe one of their members made a mistake. The gray-haired man steps closer, extending his hand, and introduces himself as Zhang Yu, the leader of the Bait Guild. But Kang, already pissed off, doesn't even acknowledge the handshake. Instead, he glares at Zhang Yu with an irritated expression, snapping that he doesn't care about his handshake or his introduction. "Stop wasting my time and get straight to the damn point!" Kang growls, warning that if he gets any angrier, he'll beat the shit out of Zhang Yu. Zhang Yu clenches his fists, his anger simmering, but he controls himself. Deciding to follow Kang's command, he cuts straight to the chase. Zhang Yu explains that the Bait Guild, one of Korea's top 5 strongest guilds, wants Kang to join their ranks. In return, Zhang Yu promises wealth, fame, money, women, whatever Kang wants. Inside, Zhang Yu smirked, thinking that no hunter, especially one who looks like a noob, would ever refuse such a tempting offer. But Kang's anger boils over. Zhang Yu pulls out a golden visiting card, calling it a special edition card that guarantees direct admission into the Bait Guild. Kang barely glances at it before flicking it into the air. With his usual quirky grin, Kang sneers, "I know my personality sucks, but my life ain't so bad that I'd join some scumbag dumbass guild like yours, even if it's top 5 in Korea." The card floats to the ground as Zhang Yu's face turns red with rage. But before he can respond, Kang steps closer, his evil, psychopathic smile widening. Showing his teeth like a furious tiger ready to devour, Kang asks in a deep, threatening tone, "What's wrong, Zhang Yu? You mad? Wanna fight?" Zhang Yu's blood pressure spikes, his veins bulging, but he forces himself to stay calm. He insists that he's only here to talk and give Kang a chance to make his future brighter. But Kang isn't interested. Without another word, Kang turns on his heel and walks away. Over his shoulder, he snarls, "Fuck your opportunity, my ass!" Kang climbs into his car, muttering about how he can't catch a break dealing with these pests, and drives off. As Kang disappears down the road, Zhang Yu stands there, his anger simmering. What happens next with Zhang Yu and Wu will be revealed later. The scene shifts to Kang driving home, deep in thought. Kang realizes he almost screwed everything up. There were more than 100 hunters back there, and Kang's energy and strength were low. If they had all attacked at once, Kang wouldn't have been able to defeat them. It's a relief they didn't fight, but Kang is still pissed off that he couldn't teach Zhang Yu a lesson. With a menacing grin, Kang swears that the next time he sees Zhang Yu, he will kill him. Meanwhile, the scene shifts again. Chickenhead No. 3, one of Zhang Yu's subordinates, informs their guild leader about the mess Zhang Yu caused. He reveals that it was Zhang Yu who guided Kang into the dungeon. Zhang Yu, confused and terrified, doesn't understand what's going on, but the guild leader's face is void of expression, his anger simmering under the surface. With a cold, sharp tone, the guild leader orders his manager to bring him his sword. The manager obeys, and Zhang Yu begins to shake in fear, realizing what's coming. Terrified, Zhang Yu pleads for his life, promising to do anything for free if the guild leader spares him. But before Zhang Yu can finish his plea, the guild leader plunges the sword into his chest. The scene is grisly, as Zhang Yu is left crying and begging, but the guild leader is beyond reason. His anger boils over and he throws Zhang Yu's body into the dungeon. The guild leader then orders his manager to gather information about Kang, saying someone is already tailing him. Zhang Yu, rage consuming him, starts laughing maniacally. "How dare Kang refuse me and insult me like that?" Zhang Yu rants, plotting to harm Kang's family. With a twisted smile, he says, "Kang loves his people. If I target them, will he still be so arrogant?" Laughing darkly, Zhang Yu declares that if he can't tame Kang directly, he'll exploit his weakness to control him. Well, when I was a kid, my dad always told me to stay away from lunatics. They go crazy when you touch their loved ones. With those words, the Bait Guild signs their own death warrant. After that, the scene shifts, and we see Kang and Juhee at the Korean BBQ premium restaurant. The aroma of tasty, mouth-watering BBQ fills the air as Juhee grills the meat. Sitting across the table, Kang listens as Juhi teases him. She remarks how she never dreamed her jobless, useless, pathetic brother would ever bring her to such a premium restaurant. Juhi's tone is light, but there's a genuine hint of pride in her words. Kang feels a small sense of pride swell within him, though he doesn't react much outwardly. He's still upset, thinking about their parents, who remain unwell. Finally, breaking the silence, Kang asks Juhi about their mom. While grilling the BBQ, Juhi responds casually, saying their mom is fine and will recover soon. Kang breathes a sigh of relief, and for the first time in months, a warm smile spreads across his face. Juhi notices the change and bursts out laughing. It's a rare sight. She playfully points out how Kang is smiling like a normal person for once. Her laughter is contagious, but she can't help but admit that she almost forgot Kang could smile that way. Kang, pausing mid-sip of water, looks up with a creepy, evil, psychopathic smile. He tells Juhi he always laughing, just like he is now. The smile is unsettling, and Juhi rolls her eyes in exasperation. She retorts that she wasn't talking about Kang's usual creepy smile. It doesn't count. Suddenly, Kang's stomach rumbles loudly and he clutches his stomach in discomfort. He abruptly stands up, causing Juhi to glance up in surprise. Kang begins heading somewhere. His expression is strained as he mutters about needing to hit the bathroom. Juhi, watching him leave, jokes that he should finish eating the meat first before heading out. But Kang waves her off, his discomfort evident. He says if he eats more meat, his own meat will come out right here. Juhi's face twists in disgust. She groans, clearly irritated by Kang's bluntness. Was it really necessary for him to say that while they were eating? She adds sarcastically that Kang should do his business in the dungeon instead of ruining her meal. Kang, unfazed, shrugs and explains that while fighting monsters in the dungeon, he doesn't get time for such things. Rolling her eyes again, Juhi snaps for him to stop talking nonsense and just go. The scene shifts, and we see Kang in the bathroom, washing his hands. He breathes a sigh of relief, muttering to himself how it felt like he had 3 days' worth of shit stored inside him. He feels so light now. Stepping out of the bathroom, Kang's attention is drawn to a boy talking to Juhi at their table. The boy looks back briefly while Juhi gestures toward Kang and says something to him. Before Kang reaches the table, the boy bows respectfully and leaves. Kang narrows his eyes, a thought forming in his mind. Was this Juhi's boyfriend? Sitting down, Kang smirks and teases Juhi about whether the boy had come to propose to her. Juhi's face hardens with annoyance as she responds that she doesn't like boys like that shoot-up guy. She adds that the boy wasn't there for her. He was looking for Kang. That boy claimed to be Kang's friend, she says. Kang frowns, confused. He doesn't recognize that boy. Juhi hands him a letter, explaining that the boy said Kang would understand who he was after reading it. Still in a decent mood, Kang opens the letter and mumbles about how, if the boy knew him, he should have stayed and said hello instead of leaving. But as Kang unfolds the letter, his expression darkens. He stops reading midway, his mood instantly shifting. The letter is from the Bait Guild. It includes a phone number, a message warning that the guild leader has a hello for Juhi, and a subtle threat. They will be watching Juhi closely. The scene shifts again to nighttime. Kang and Juhi have returned home. Juhi realizes she forgot some items and casually mentions that she'll head out to the convenience store to grab them. Kang, however, stops her. He insists she should rest and offers to go out himself. Juhi looks at him, shocked. Kang volunteering for errands? That's unheard of. But Kang simply smirks and brushes it off, saying there's a first time for everything. He grabs his coat and heads out, leaving Juhi in a mix of surprise and disbelief. Then the scene shifts, and we see Kang walking back from the convenience store, his mind racing with worry. He is cursing the Bait Guild, silently thinking, what the hell do they want now? Kang's thoughts spiral as he wonders, do they want to harm my family? Anxiety grips him, and he considers staying with Juhi for a few days to protect her. But another darker thought strikes him. What if the Bait Guild targets his parents in the hospital? A pang of helplessness washes over Kang. He knows he can't protect everyone at the same time. As Kang wrestles with his thoughts, his phone rings. It's his father's number. Kang picks up, and his father's voice carries unexpected news. Your mom has regained consciousness. Kang freezes, his face lighting up with pure joy, and he starts jumping like a kid. His father continues, explaining that the doctor said she will recover completely and be as healthy as before. Kang breathes a deep sigh of relief, a warm smile spreading across his face. But before he can fully savor the moment, his father's tone shifts, and he delivers something that stirs Kang's fury. His father tells him that a friend came to the hospital to visit Kang's mom. Kang's brow furrows. What friend? His father adds that he didn't recognize this so-called friend, but the man left a message. Tell Kang that we're from the Bait Guild and will take good care of his mom and dad. Kang will understand what we mean. Kang stands still, his body stiff and radiating rage. Inside, his fury boils to a level that feels volcanic, his veins bulging and his face contorting like a wild beast's. His teeth grind together as his fists clench tightly. Kang feels a primal urge to bury the Bait Guild into the ground. The scene shifts to the next day, where we see a young woman, Miss Miu, chatting with her colleague. Miss Miu is the same woman who once dreamed of becoming a civil servant to guide new hunters. As they talk, a newly trained hunter approaches with a bottle of juice, offering it politely. Miss Miu smiles, accepting the juice and sharing it with her colleague. Her colleague remarks about how polite and kind the hunters are, joking that this job is like a dream, meeting handsome, polite hunters every day. But Miss Miu's mind drifts to darker memories. She suddenly remembers the two psychopathic students from a recent batch, the worst generation of hunters she had ever trained. Miss Miu shudders as she recalls how one of them broke his partner's arms and legs during sparring, while the other defeated his instructor in a single blow. Their faces were like wild beasts, and one of them even resembled an orc warrior. Miss Miu admits to her colleague that she still dreams about them at night, their terrifying faces haunting her. Suddenly, she feels an intense presence behind her. A chill runs down her spine as she slowly turns, her heart pounding. There, standing like a zombie, is Kang. His piercing eyes lock onto hers, unblinking and intense. Miss Miu freezes, her body trembling. As realization dawns, she processes that Kang is the psychopath from her nightmares. Her fear escalates, and she starts to see Kang as a monster ready to devour her whole. Kang's eyes don't waver, staring straight into Miss Miu's. Her terror peaks, and she screams. Her colleague, equally terrified, feels her soul leave her body. The pair are so scared that they instinctively call the police. But before they can do anything, Kang steps forward, his expression grim yet firm, and explains that he's not a monster. He introduces himself, saying he's Kang and reminding Miss Miu that he graduated recently. Kang quickly gets to the point. He's here for Kim's address. His urgency is clear as he demands to know Kim's whereabouts. Miss Miu, sobbing uncontrollably, manages to stammer out that Kim isn't working as an instructor anymore. Instead, Kim is managing his guild now. Kang, burning with determination, explains that he needs Kim's help to protect his family temporarily so he can deal with the Bait Guild once and for all. The scene shifts again, and we see Kim giving a report to his guildmaster, but the atmosphere is tense. One of the guild members bursts in, his face pale with fear. He tells Kim that there's a monster-like figure outside. The man describes Kang, his orc-like appearance, his intimidating aura, and how he's causing a ruckus. The guild members, all terrified, are unsure what to do, but Kim listens carefully, his expression shifting from confusion to realization. With a heavy sigh, Kim mutters to himself that it can only be Kang. After that, the scene shifts, and we see Kang sitting with Kim. Kim is sipping his coffee when Kang, without wasting any time, gets straight to the point. He needs Kim's help. Kang wants to hire Kim. Kim chuckles and remarks that Kang always talks directly, no beating around the bush. That's one of the reasons he likes Kang. But Kim is curious, so he asks for more details. Kang's expression turns serious as he begins narrating the whole story, how his fight with the Bait Guild started, and how they are now threatening his family. Kang explains that all he needs is a bodyguard to protect his family until he can slaughter every single member of the Bait Guild. To make this happen, Kang says he's willing to pay Kim as much money as he wants. Hearing this, Kim raises an eyebrow, setting his coffee down. He admits that he has heard of the Bait Guild's reputation. They're infamous for their evil and dirty tactics. He adds that he and his guild have wanted to punish them for a long time, but the Bait Guild is slippery and never leaves a clue behind. Kang leans forward with a sinister smirk and tells Kim he doesn't need to worry about that. All Kim has to do is protect Kang's family. Kang will personally take care of the rest. He'll wipe out every single member of the Bait Guild on Kim's behalf. Kim stares at Kang, a mix of amusement and concern on his face. He mutters that Kang is still as brutal as the last time he saw him. But then Kim pauses and asks a question that catches Kang off guard. He wants to know why Kang didn't go to Sangwoo instead. Why did Kang come straight to him? At the mention of Sang-woo's name, Kang's face twists into a strange expression. With an irritated tone, Kang asks if Kim would trust his own family's safety to a psychopath like Sang-woo. He shakes his head and adds that apart from Kim and Sang-woo, he doesn't know or trust any other hunters. That's why he came directly to Kim. Kang reiterates his request, saying Kim only has to protect his family for a week. In return, Kang will pay Kim whatever amount he wants. But Kim, now wearing a serious expression, calmly sets his coffee down and says he doesn't need Kang's money. Kim admits that his guild is wealthy enough. He has no use for Kang's payment, but he does have a proposal. Kim offers to help Kang, but on one condition. Kang narrows his eyes. His curiosity piqued. He leans in and asks what Kim wants, if not money. Then, with a playful grin and a mock-seductive pose, Kang teasingly asks if Kim wants his body instead. Kang even touches his chest shyly, making Kim's eyes widen in disbelief. Kim, now visibly annoyed, waves his hand dismissively and says, "No, I don't want your damn body!" He clarifies that his only request is for Kang to meet his guild master. That's the only condition. Kim adds that Kang can still pay him if he wants. He'll happily accept the money. With that, the two strike an agreement. The scene shifts again, and now we see Kim and Kang sitting on a cart together. Kim updates Kang on the security arrangements. He's stationed 6 high-level hunters at Kang's house, more elite hunters at the hospital to protect Kang's parents, and even placed guards outside Juhi's office and shadowed her movements. Kang, though grateful, comments that Kim is being way too generous. But soon, the atmosphere grows serious as their cart stops. Kim has brought Kang to a towering building, the Bait Guild's headquarters. Kang steps out of the cart and squints at the structure, muttering that the building doesn't look that impressive. He tilts his head, his tone dripping with sarcasm, and asks, "So, this is one of Korea's top 5 guilds." Kim explains to Kang that the size of a building doesn't determine the power of a guild. In the Bait Guild, the leader has gathered many high-level hunters, just one level below the Dangu Guild, whose vice leader is Kim. Kim warns Kang again, saying that as soon as the Bait Guild leader sent that letter, the Bait Guild must have gathered all their hunters in the building. Kim emphasizes that if Kang goes in alone to fight the Bait Guild, he may not be able to kill them all. But Kang steps out of the car and, with a calm yet firm tone, says that Kim doesn't need to worry about him. He's made a full-proof plan. Saying this, Kang hands over his purse and car keys to Kim, casually telling him to keep them safe. Seeing this, Kim gets visibly worried. In his mind, he thinks Kang is going on a suicide mission. But Kang reassures him that there's no misunderstanding. He has a very strong plan. With that, Kang leaves for the guild building. Kim watches him leave, his mind racing with questions and worry. The scene shifts to Kang entering the Bait Guild. The Bait Guild leader, Jung-yu, welcomes Kang with a wide smile. Behind Jung-yu, there are hundreds of high-level hunters, all armed and ready. Kang, seeing the massive crowd, smirks and asks sarcastically, "Why did Jung-yu bring so few people to welcome me?" Jung-yu, with a polite yet sly grin, replies, "Because you're going to be part of our family from today. All these people are here to welcome you." Hearing the word family, Kang's face starts to twist with anger. His tone grows dark and he asks Jung-yu if he knows what happens when you spell family backward. The next moment, Kang's expression turns psychotic, and with a wide, evil grin, he activates his mana blast. His voice drops into a threatening tone as he says, "Go fuck yourself!" Kang doesn't stop there. He unleashes his lion roar, boosting his entire stance. He channels his mana blast into the ground, causing a massive explosion. The entire floor shatters beneath their feet. The shockwave is so powerful that all the concrete melts, exposing the thick rods beneath, which also start melting from the heat. But Kang isn't done yet. He activates his vibranium sword, and with a single swing, slices through the melted rods. The entire floor collapses, sending all the hunters crashing down. Half the hunters are injured from the fall. Kang stands amidst the rubble, smirking, and says, "Well, that plan wasn't half bad." He used Antony's body defense skill, which protected him from any damage. From behind, Jung-yu jumps down, also unharmed. Jung-yu, still composed, tries to reason with Kang. He tells him, "It's not too late. We can still be great partners." Hearing the word partner, Kang's rage boils over. With venom in his voice, he snarls, "Stop this bullshit!" He reminds Jung-yu that the moment he threatened Kang's family, he crossed the line. Despite Kang's fury, Jung-yu continues his grand pitch. He declares that the Bait Guild has everything: power, money, wealth, and influence. All they need is a hunter like Kang, and together they could become Korea's #1 guild, even surpassing the Dangu Guild. But as Jung-Yu finishes his speech, Kang looks disgusted. Slowly, he gathers all his saliva and Pat Kang spits his saliva right on Jung-Yu's face. For a moment, the room falls silent. Jung-Yu stands still, processing what just happened, as Kang's saliva drips down his face. Kang, in a deadly tone, tells him, "Your bullshit speeches are pissing me off. You can really become great, YouTuber. Say one more thing and I'll rip you apart." Jung-Yu reaches up, touching the saliva on his face. His brain snaps. His expression twists with rage, veins popping out of his forehead. His voice trembles with fury as he spits out, "A lowly peasant like you will always remain a peasant." Kang, on the other hand, laughs uncontrollably as Jung-Yu calls him a lowly peasant. The sheer absurdity of the term cracks him up. While laughing, Kang sarcastically looks at all the hunters and asks if they heard Jung-Yu just say lowly peasant. He mocks, "What a weird choice of words for the 21st century." Kang turns to Jung-Yu with an amused smirk and asks if he was a king from another world who got killed by a rat and reincarnated in this modern age. Or maybe, Kang sneers, Jung-Yu is some kind of noble or thug-class priest. That was the last straw. Hearing so much insult, Jung-Yu's face turns red with rage, stretching like a giraffe. His anger boils over, and he shouts an order to all the hunters, "Kill him now!" In a flash, all the hunters activate their mana. The air crackles as they unleash a barrage of attacks. Fire, electricity, water, all aimed directly at Kang. But Kang doesn't flinch. Instead, he roars with his lion's roar, a powerful debuff skill. The roar causes all the attacks to deflect, scattering harmlessly. Lion's roar isn't just a roar, it's a game changer. Any low-level attacks on Kang are ineffective. Moreover, Kang's ring of strength and mind neutralizes poison, curses, or mind control spells, rendering them useless. On top of that, anyone weaker than Kang instantly loses 50% of their stats. The hunters freeze in place, unable to move. Jung-Yu looks at them in disgust and shouts, "Useless! All of you are useless!" His anger explodes, and he screams at the unaffected hunters, "If you don't kill Kang now, I'll kill all of you!" Hearing this, the strong hunters, those on Kang's level, spring into action. One of them, a bald man with a massive belly, nicknamed Fat Saitama, begins preparing a powerful magic spell, but Kang is ready. He activates his defense skill, turning his entire body as hard as steel. The attacks hit Kang head-on, but he doesn't even flinch. Not a single scratch appears on him. Meanwhile, the other hunters, 200 to 300 of them, rush Kang, attacking him in waves. But Kang doesn't care. With the ease of slicing butter, he begins cutting them down one by one. Jung-Yu's fury reaches its peak as he watches his hunters fall like dominoes. Kang, breathing deeply, shouts with intensity, "Now I'll cut everyone's little pee-pee, one by one!" The ground shakes with a massive explosion, and the scene cuts to Kim, sitting outside in tension. Kim, worried, mutters to himself, wondering what's happening inside. The scene shifts to evening, and the entire Bait Guild building is in flames. Inside, the scene is gruesome. Bodies of hunters lie scattered everywhere. Hearts, legs, torsos, all severed and mangled. Kang stands amidst the carnage, exhausted but unbroken. His body has no visible injuries, but his energy is clearly drained. Jung-Yu, for a fleeting moment, feels fear, thinking Kang might kill everyone. But then, seeing Kang's exhaustion, Jung-Yu's fear shifts to glee. Smiling wickedly, Jung-Yu taunts Kang, saying, "Now that you've killed so many people, you are the murderer." But Kang, even in his exhaustion, laughs. He throws another insult, mocking, "Are you an elementary school kid? Only a kid would come up with such a lame taunt." Hearing this, Jung-Yu snaps. His anger erupts and he activates his tentacle skill. From the ground, dark, writhing tentacles shoot up and wrap around Kang, binding him. Kang, too exhausted to dodge, is caught. In the blink of an eye, the vice leader of the Bait Guild appears, sword in hand, and stabs Kang in the chest. Blood begins to pour as Kang's body starts to weaken. His entire frame trembles, his nose bleeds, and his strength fades. Kang mutters to himself, "No matter how many times I die, this feeling never gets better." Jung-Yu watches with a mix of relief and triumph. Slowly, the guild's vice master approaches Jung-Yu, who commends him, saying he did a great job. Jung-Yu steps closer to Kang, who now resembles a broken shell of himself. For a brief moment, even Jung-Yu had been scared that Kang might wipe them all out. But now, seeing Kang dying before him, Jung-yu grins and says, "You're just like an insect, dying so slowly, so pathetically." Then he comes to Kang saying that Jung-yu doesn't like such a beast that he can't tame. Kang is just a wild beast for him, which Jung-yu couldn't control, so he is killing him. While saying this, he asks Kang, "Any last words?" But Kang doesn't say anything. After a while, with his usual cocky tone, Kang says to Jung-yu that Kang will kill Jung-yu with a horrible death. The day Jung-yu decided to harm Kang's family, Jung-yu signed his death warrant. But Jung-yu doesn't understand. Kang is going to die here. How is Kang talking about killing Jung-yu? With that, Jung-yu grabs Kang's head, activates his fire skill, and burns Kang alive. Kang feels so much pain that every cell of his body is slowly burning. Kang brutally and painfully burns for half an hour and dies. Jung-yu, on the other hand, starts smoking. After half an hour, the vice leader comes and tells Jung-yu that Kang is finally dead. He also informs Jung-yu that almost 50 people have died in the entire guild, and more than 100 have been injured. Jung-yu gets very worried and starts thinking, how could one person have damaged his guild so much? But he tells the vice leader not to think too much about it, because a very big enemy of theirs is over. He orders that all the people who have died collect their equipment and put a notice for new recruitment. But as soon as the vice leader goes to take Kang's equipment, he notices that Kang is not there at all. Kang has disappeared from the scene. Only Kang's burnt clothes are left behind. And now everyone is shocked and worried. What is going on? After that, the shift happens. The system notifies Kang that a day has passed, Kang's Revive Resurrection skill has been activated, and Kang has been resurrected again. However, Kang has lost 1 level, and for the next 24 hours, Kang's stats have been reduced by 50%. Kang comes out of his room. Seeing Kang, Juhi gets irritated. She says that Kang had promised he would not do anything that would cause his death, but Kang says the situation was such that he couldn't do anything else. They will talk about all of this later. Kang, feeling very hungry, asks Juhi if there is anything to eat. Juhi, being an Asian, scolds Kang very badly, saying it is forbidden to wear shoes in her room. Get your shoes out quickly, or else she will throw Kang out of the house with his shoes. With that, they start fighting again, showing their love-hate relationship. After that, we see that 2 days have passed. 2 members of the Bait Guild are sitting outside the dungeon, guarding it. They are bored to death. They talk to each other, wondering why no one has been coming to this dungeon for so many days. One of them explains that there has been an incident due to which many people were killed. Because of this, the number of people in the dungeon has reduced. But suddenly, they notice someone coming from the front. They look carefully and notice a man wearing black underwear and weird skeleton armor on his head. He looks like a clown or like he's about to rob a bank. After seeing this appearance, they both realize that this person's mental state is not okay. They don't understand what to say to him, but this man is none other than Kang. He stands in front of them, and they both look at Kang confused, saying, "Who is this weirdo?" Kang would have killed all the members of the Bait Guild, one by one. Kang also had another idea. The more Kang died, the next day he would go back to the Bait Guild and kill everyone there. Kang knows that he has infinite lives, but still he would have died at least 5-6 times, which was a completely wrong idea. Kang's level would have gone down, and a lot of penalties would have been imposed on him. So now Kang decided to divide and rule, targeting them one by one, killing them one at a time. The scene shifts, and we see Kang standing in the personal dungeon of the Bait Guild with the same 2 people. Kang is holding a yellow-haired coward by the neck, and there are a lot of dead bodies lying in front and behind him. Kang brutally kills all the members of the Bait Guild in the dungeon. Now Kang stands, holding the last coward by the neck. The yellow-haired coward is so scared that he almost pees his pants. He is crying and begging Kang to leave him, saying he can't breathe. He keeps apologizing to Kang. But Kang was not in the mood to hear any apologies. Kang, with his deep, threatening tone, asks, "Why are you apologizing to me? Do you even know what you've done?" The yellow-haired coward in pain tells Kang that even he doesn't know why he's apologizing. He doesn't know Kang and hasn't done anything. Hearing this, Kang grabs the coward's neck tighter and throws him to the ground. Kang snarls, "If you don't know me, then why are you apologizing?" The yellow-haired coward thinks in his mind, "Who is this lunatic psychopath?" He realizes it's useless to talk to Kang, but at the same time, Kang throws a white paper in front of him. Kang demands that the coward take a pen and write down all the details of the Bait Guild on that paper. Kong tells him that if he writes down all the information, Kong will spare his life. Hearing this, the yellow-haired coward immediately writes down all the information. But Kang, curious, asks him a question. Kang demands to know, the Bait Guild has committed so many murders and crimes. Why hasn't the police ever caught them? Do they pay the police with money and bribes? Let's call the yellow-haired coward Pighead number 7. So Pighead number 7 explains to Kang that the Bait Guild always acquires dungeons where there are no CCTV cameras. They commit all their crimes and murders inside these dungeons. So far, no evidence has ever been found against them. Saying this, Pighead number 7 hands the paper with all the information to Kang. Kong reads it for a while and seems very satisfied. Pighead number 7 starts to say, "Now that I've given you all the information, will you let me go?" But Kang places his hand on Pighead number 7's head, pretending to applaud him. Kang says, "Good job," and suddenly activates his mana blast. Bam! With a loud bang, Kang blows Pighead number 7's head off. Blood splatters everywhere. Pighead number 7 is now lying dead. Kang gets up, cleans the blood from his hands, and smirks. He says, "This means Kang will not be caught for all the crimes he's committed in this dungeon." Saying this, Kong leaves the dungeon, smirking, "Bait Guild, wait for me. A bigger, badder daddy is on the way." The scene shifts, and we see young Yu watching the news. In the news, it is shown that a dungeon near the Bait Guild has been broken into. Because of this, the entire building of the Bait Guild has been destroyed. This news tarnishes the reputation of the Bait Guild, as it is one of Korea's top 5 guilds. The news anchor states that it's a big shame for the Bait Guild because they couldn't properly manage a dungeon, and now their building has been damaged. Young Yu is furious. He starts banging his hand on the table, yelling, he never thought he'd have to use his emergency excuse for some psychopath. He is already very pissed off. Suddenly, someone opens the door and calls Jung Yu's name. The guild member tries to tell him that there's a problem, but before he can even finish his sentence, Young Yu grabs a bowl of iron cigars and throws it at the member's head. The guild member's head is badly injured. Jung Yu screams at him, calling him a piece of shit. Jung Yu yells, "How dare you? How dare you open the door without knocking? What if I was playing with my little PP by watching hentai, huh?" Young Yu is already so pissed off, and this sudden disturbance makes him even more upset. The member bows his head and apologizes before explaining that a big problem has arisen. He begins talking about an unknown person, someone who has been systematically targeting the Bait Guild and killing their members one by one. Hearing this, Young Yu's anger ignites, and he rises sharply from his seat. He questions if this is the same individual who has been wreaking havoc in their dungeon for the past 2 days, killing only their people. The member confirms it, saying it's the same psycho who has already killed over 100 guild members in just 2 days. Jung Yu, already burdened by stress, grows more agitated. After piecing everything together, he concludes that sending more members after this unknown individual will only result in greater losses for the guild. He issues a decisive order. Recall all dungeon members immediately for an emergency meeting at the guild hall. As the member leaves, Jung Yu sits back down, deep in thought. He connects the dots in his mind. 5 days ago, Kong was killed, burned alive by Jung Yu himself. Yet, Kong's body mysteriously disappeared. Now, 2 days ago, a lunatic began murdering guild members relentlessly. It doesn't take long for Jung Yu to conclude that the unknown attacker must have some connection to Kong, a friend, a brother, or perhaps a relative seeking revenge. Furthermore, this person must have some sort of unique skill that allowed them to make Kong's corpse vanish. Jung Yu realizes he has no choice but to call for help. He looks at his phone with hesitation before making a call to an unknown individual. As soon as the call connects, the person on the other end speaks rudely, dismissing Jung Yu's request. Jung Yu, trying to remain composed, politely explains that he needs their assistance and is willing to pay any amount for it. However, the individual arrogantly retorts that no amount of money can sway him, as he's already far wealthier than Jung Yu. Jung Yu, unfazed, shifts tactics. He reminds the man of his love for fighting and challenges, explaining that the person he needs killed is incredibly strong and will provide ample entertainment. Hearing this, the unknown man's demeanor changes and he finally agrees, his interest piqued. Jung Yu reveals that this person is none other than Sang-woo. The scene shifts to Sang-woo standing outside the Bait Guild dungeon alongside a pig-headed guild member. Sang-woo, clearly bored, stretches his arms and casually asks the pighead for his name. Before the pighead can finish, Sang-woo interrupts, stating he doesn't care about names and was just making conversation to pass the time. With a twisted grin, he refers to the pighead as Big Bro Jung-Yu's servant, making the guild member visibly uneasy. As Sang-woo stretches his hands again, he jokingly threatens to make the pighead his next target if today's opponent isn't as strong as promised. His creepy smile only worsens the pighead's anxiety, leaving him wondering how he ended up in such a situation. Suddenly, the echoing sound of footsteps fills the area. Sang-woo immediately becomes alert, his excitement building. Kong emerges slowly from the shadows, his figure imposing and his face hidden beneath a strange mask made from his underwear. Sang-woo's body begins trembling, a mix of fear and exhilaration. Sweat trickles down his face as his lips curl into an excited smile. Sang-woo boasts about his unique ability, a sixth sense that tells him how dangerous someone is. He reveals that every fiber of his being is screaming that if he doesn't flee, he will meet a horrible death because a monstrous opponent stands before him. Despite his instincts, Sang-woo grins maniacally and pulls out his axe, ready to attack. But just as he's about to strike, Kang freezes in place, his expression bewildered. He looks at Sang-woo, confused as to why he's even here. Breaking the tension, Kang asks Sang-woo what he's doing. Recognizing Kang's voice, Sang-woo pauses, his expression changing to one of disbelief. He questions if the masked figure is indeed Big Bro Kang. It becomes evident that Kang and Sang-woo, both lunatics in their own right, have crossed paths once more. So with that, lunatic meets another lunatic means Bait Guild is so dead now. Sang-woo is still standing there, shocked, bewildered, with his mouth wide open, realizing that the person in front of him is none other than Kang. After processing the situation for a moment, Sang-woo's face twists into a smirking smile as he acknowledges that Kang is the one slicing through the Bait Guild members like vegetables. Kang remains silent, but his demeanor confirms Sang-woo's suspicions. As Sang-woo approaches, his tone is filled with glee as he remarks how much fun Kang seems to be having in his life. Meanwhile, Kang begins wondering if Sang-woo is connected to the Bait Guild. He recalls that Kim mentioned a powerful backer behind the guild, someone wealthy and influential. Kang's thoughts spiral. Could that person be Sang-woo? Would Kang have to fight him in the future? His thoughts grow heavier as he pieces things together. Still with a deadly serious tone, Kang places his sword in front of Sang-woo, questioning if he too is tied to the Bait Guild. Sang-woo casually brushes it off, referring to Kong as Big Bro, and reassures him that he wouldn't associate himself with delinquish trash. His casual tone doesn't sit right with Kong, who keeps his guard up. The pighead standing nearby seems startled by the tension, but Kong presses further. With an evil smirk, he demands to know why Sang-woo is here and what he's doing guarding the dungeon. Sang-woo nonchalantly explains that Jung-yu, the Bait Guild's leader, begged him for help, literally getting on his knees and pleading like a beggar. Sang-woo admits he wasn't initially interested, even finding the begging pleasurable. But as soon as Jung-yu mentioned a single individual causing chaos in the guild, Sang-woo couldn't resist. A strong opponent? A challenge? This was Sang-woo's dream. Hearing this, Kang pauses, the pieces fall into place, and Sang-woo's story starts making sense. With a smirk, Kang pats Sang-woo on the shoulder and casually remarks that he has work to finish in the dungeon. Afterward, they can go out, eat, and have fun. Kang, seemingly uninterested, digs his nose while walking away, inwardly annoyed that he forgot to take Sang-woo's number last time. This time, he vows not to forget. But Kang doesn't realize that Sang-woo has already jumped into the air, his hammer ready to smash Kang's head. Just as the hammer descends, Kang turns back and blocks it effortlessly. His eyes narrow, and with a deadly serious tone, he questions what Sang-woo is trying to do. Sang-woo, unfazed, grins and declares that he can't let Kang leave without a proper fight. For years, Sang-woo had dreamed of facing Kang in a one-on-one duel. This was the perfect opportunity, and Sang-woo wasn't going to miss it. Hearing this, Kang's expression darkens. He agrees, his voice dripping with threat. If Sang-woo wanted a fight, he would get one, but Kang warns that he won't hold back, even if it means killing Sang-woo. The two lunatics clash, their battle beginning with explosive intensity. Kang's deadly eyes focus on Sang-woo, while Sang-woo, excited and laughing, relishes the fight. Kang quickly gains the upper hand, his strength overpowering Sang-woo. But Sang-woo, thrilled by the challenge, shouts that this is exactly what he wanted. Kang, determined to end it quickly, activates his Titan Strength Vibrant Secret technique, boosting his power exponentially. With a single slash, Kang nearly splits Sang-woo in two. Sang-woo dodges at the last moment, but his check got slashed, leaving him surprised. Sang-woo laughs and shouts that Kang has become a monster in such a short time. He throws a barrage of attacks, but Kang easily blocks each one. Kang begins to grow frustrated. This fight is delaying his plans, yet he can't help but feel a twisted sense of satisfaction. It had been so long since Kang had enjoyed a fight like this. Sang-woo notices Kang's pleasurable expression and bursts into laughter. He knew Kang would enjoy their duel. Calling Kang Big Bro once more, Sang-woo prepares for another round, but just as they are about to clash again, Pighead number 7 charges at Kang from behind, hoping to earn a reward by killing him. Both Kang and Sang-woo freeze as Pighead number 7 rushes forward. The Pighead, blinded by ambition, believes he's doing the right thing, but in the blink of an eye, Sang-woo smashes Pighead number 7's head with his hammer. Blood splatters everywhere and Pighead drops dead on the spot. Sang-woo's anger boils over. He stares furiously at the Pighead's corpse, shouting that this idiot ruined his fight with Kang. His body trembles with rage as he laments how close he was to experiencing the perfect battle. Meanwhile, Kang watches from behind, his expression unreadable. Sang-woo stands there, staring at the bloodied mess he's created by smashing Pighead number 8. It's clear now. Sang-woo is not completely aligned with the Bait Guild. If he were, there's no way he would have killed one of their members so brutally. Letting out an irritated breath, Sang-woo turns to Kang. His frustration is palpable as he mutters that his wife's vibe has been completely ruined by that idiot. The mood is gone. Sang-woo had waited so long, too damn long, for this fight with Kang. It was supposed to be epic, a proper one-on-one between two maniacs. But now, the flow is broken. He still wants to fight Kang, but something in him knows that forcing it now might ruin everything. Kang, on the other hand, wonders how Sang-woo is worried about being hated when the entire world already loathes him. Sang-woo, trying to mask his disappointment, casually slips his hand into his pocket. He talks about the leader of the Bait Guild, Jung-yu, describing him as nothing more than a shitbag. Sang-woo's tone shifts as he brags about the powerful backers of Jung-yu. Jung-yu is the illegitimate child of someone influential, and he is damn rich and powerful but no richer than Sang-woo. All because of this backer Jung-woo can cause this murder and evil deeds. Kang listens, irritated. None of Sang-woo's connections matter to him. He doesn't care about Sang-woo's backer or his riches. If Sang-woo thinks he can scare Kang, he's dead wrong. Kang is ready to march into the Bait Guild's dungeon without Sang-woo. But just as Kang turns to leave, Sang-woo grabs him by the shoulder, stopping him mid-step. Sang-woo, smirking, tells Kang he isn't finished talking yet. Sang-woo explains that he doesn't care who Kang's enemies are or what his plans might be. Sang-woo wants to see the Bait Guild destroyed just as much as Kang does. The thought of seeing those delinquents pissed off and humiliated fuels him. The scene shifts to the Bait Guild's leader, Jung-yu, who is at his wit's end. Almost 90% of his dungeon has been wiped out. His people are dead. His guild is in shambles. Fueled by rage, Jung-yu destroys his computer, slamming it onto the desk repeatedly until it's unrecognizable. He screams and curses, calling his remaining members useless. The same guild manager, Jung-yu, had thrown a cigar at Watches helplessly as his leader descends into madness. Jung-yu's face is flushed red with anger, his eyes bloodshot. He demands that the manager gather the remaining members of the guild, all of them, by 9 p.m. The manager tries to explain that most of the guild is dead, and those who survived have fled out of fear. But Jung-yu won't hear it. He screams, threatening to have the manager pick up their family members or bribe other hunters if that's what it takes. He wants 200, 300 top-tier hunters ready by nightfall. His words are so forceful, so venomous, that his entire face looks like it might explode. Suddenly, his phone rings. An unknown number flashes on the screen. Jung-yu hesitates but answers. The voice on the other end is calm, calculated. Somehow, it manages to soothe Jung-yu's boiling rage. The scene shifts again back to Kang and Sang-woo, who are nearing the endgame of their assault on the Bait Guild. Together, they've almost wiped out the guild's final dungeon. Kang, looking ahead, remarks that they've reached the finale. Their work here is nearly done. Sang-woo, still lingering in the moment, says he doesn't want this to end. He's had too much fun being with his big bro Kang. Sang-woo turns to Kang, asking about his final plan. Kang, with a polite smile, turns to face Sang-woo and explains. But as the details of Kang's plan unfold, Sang-woo's face twists into an expression of pure disgust. He looks at Kang like he's just lost his mind. Sang-woo, the self-proclaimed lunatic, finds Kang's plan so insane that even he questions Kang's sanity. When the crazy guy calls you crazy, it could only mean one thing: Kang's scheme was beyond psychotic. After that, the scene shifts, revealing Jung-yu holding a letter in his hand. This letter, delivered by the infamous Phantom Thief, none other than Kong, carries a chilling challenge. It boldly declares that Kong will be waiting for Jung-yu at the Dolphin Forest at 6 p.m. The message is clear. The cat and mouse game ends here. This is the final showdown, and Kang has dared Jung-yu to settle it once and for all. Jung-yu's face darkens with rage as he reads the letter. His anger boils over as he crushes the letter in his fist and sets it ablaze. Determined to put an end to this humiliation, Jung-yu gathers his entire guild, summoning every force at his disposal. He marches to the Dolphin Forest with hundreds of hunters. All high-level and armed to the teeth, Jung-yu spends all his money to hire hundreds of high-level hunters. Jung-yu's fury is unstoppable. In his mind, this is not just a fight, it's a hunt. He swears that today will mark the end of Kang's defiance. Jung-yu vows to rip the skin off the man who dared to challenge him and make an example of him. The Phantom Thief's bones? Jung-yu plans to mount them on his wall as a gruesome trophy. Behind Jung-yu, the forest is filled with the sound of marching boots and the clinking of weapons. Hundreds of hunters follow their leader, their faces betraying a mixture of fear and unease. These are not volunteers, they are pawns. Many have been forced into Jung-yu's service. Their families held hostage, their lives bought with blood money. Some of the hunters exchange nervous glances, whispering among themselves. Why has Jung-yu brought such an overwhelming force to face one man? Why the need for so many high-level hunters to deal with a single individual? Tension hangs thick in the air, their unease growing with every step. Jung-yu glances at his manager and demands to know the time. The manager nervously tells him it's almost 6 p.m. Hearing this, Jung-yu is furious. He's been searching all day and hasn't seen a single sign of the underwear man. Suddenly, one of the guild members spots something. From the front, someone is bolting towards them. Everyone freezes, squinting to get a better look. And then it becomes clear. It's Kang, sprinting like a lunatic with a giant bag in his hand. Behind him, a pack of bloodthirsty wolves chasing him like he owes them money. Kong's crazy bloodshot eyes send chills down everyone's spine. Even Jung-yu is shaken, realizing it's none other than Kong. But wait, wasn't Kong supposed to be dead? Confusion and fear ripple through the group. The manager fumbles for his sword, whispering about the possibility of a twin brother. But Jung-yu knows. He can't forget Kang's psychotic laugh. This is no twin. This is Kang. Kang doesn't slow down. With his signature evil grin, he yells out Jung-yu's name, greeting him like an old buddy. It's been a while, hasn't it? Kang mockingly hopes Jung-yu and his guild are doing well. Then, with a dramatic flourish, Kong reaches into his bag. What does he pull out? A super cute puppy wagging its tail and licking his fingers. The guild members freeze, absolutely stunned. The sight of such adorable innocence makes them forget everything for a moment. Meanwhile, Kang's creepy grin widens as he tightens his grip on the puppy, and then he throws the puppy straight at Jung-yu. The guild members panic. A bald guy in the group screams, calling Kang a lowly bastard. How could he? How could anyone be so cruel as to throw such a cute puppy? The bald guy drops his weapon, diving to catch the puppy mid-air, heroically saving it. He cradles the puppy, whispering, "Daddy's got you," like he's in a cheesy action movie. But Kang isn't done, oh no. With a sinister smirk, he throws his entire bag into the air. Out of it spill 25 more puppies, each falling towards the guild members. The hunters drop their weapons to save the puppies, adoring the cute crying creatures. It's chaos. This is Kang's plan. While the guild is distracted, saving the puppies, the Dolphin wolves, furious that Kang stole their young, charge at the hunters. The wolves maul anyone holding a puppy, and Kang goes wild, killing members one by one with his unstoppable fury. Jung-yu, watching the carnage, realizes the fight is impossible. Kong isn't just insane, he's geniusly evil. The wolves, the puppies, the psychotic grin, this guy planned everything. Knowing they can't win, Jung-yu screams for a retreat. His pride is shattered, but survival is the only option. The remaining members rush toward the dungeon exit, desperate to escape. But just as they reach the portal, Sang-woo appears. his head popping out like a demented game of peekaboo. With a chilling hello, he pulls out a pointy hammer from his inventory and smashes their heads one by one. At this point, even Jesus can't save these guys. The psychopathic duo of Kang and Sang-woo make sure every last member of the guild meets a gruesome end. Rip to the Bait Guild members. They wanted to quit the guild tomorrow, but they didn't make it past tonight. After that, the scene shifts, and we see Sang-woo finally stepping out of the dungeon. With his heavy, pointy weapon, he starts smashing heads one by one. Pop, pop, like balloons bursting in a twisted party. That psychopathic smile on his face says it all. Sang-woo's loving the chaos. The blood splatter painting the air, raining down like some twisted red shower. People are screaming for help, begging Jung-woo to save them. But there he stands, confused, lost in his own head. He's thinking, when the hell did I betray these people? His mind's spinning, his chest tightening. What's happening? His plan's gone to hell, and now it feels like survival's just a sick joke. Jung-woo glances left, then right. Damn, there the demonic wolves were slaughtering his peoples. On his right, Kang is just smashing the guild members, one by one, like some psychopathic vegetable, hacking and slashing. And behind him? Oh yeah, Sang-woo's there too. Smashing the guild from behind, he is enjoying it damn too much. He's trapped. Jung-woo is trapped in a threesome, each more vicious than the last. It hits him. There's no way he's getting out of this alive. Jang-woo clenches his fists, his knuckles turning white, trembling with a mix of rage and desperation. His breath is ragged, his body trembling as the reality sinks in. If he's dying here, he's taking Kang down with him. The thought sets his blood on fire. Meanwhile, Kang's in his own nightmare. The guild members swarm him like roaches, everywhere. There's no end to them. Suddenly, a scream echoes. Kang! Jung-woo's voice booms as he rushes toward him, flames engulfing his body. Kang spins around, catching sight of Jung-woo activating his self-destruction mode. Whoosh! Flames burst from Jung-woo's body, his whole being turning into a living inferno. He screams Kang's name again, charging straight at him like a flaming wrecking ball. Boom! He collides with Kang, embracing him in a fiery hug. And then, bang, a massive explosion. Smoke clouds the battlefield, thick and suffocating. When it clears, Jung-woo's half-burnt body is lying there, twitching. But surprise! He ain't dead. Panting, Jung-woo smirks weakly. Yeah, that was my ace skill, he explains. Self-destruction mode. A risky move, but hey, worth it to kill Kang. He tries to reassure himself. But then, a shadow moves. Out of the flames, Kang emerges. Like a damn demon king from hell. Kang's body, burnt and charred, rises. Flames flicker off his skin, and his hand grabs Jung-woo by the head. His face? Pure nightmare fuel, like something straight out of a horror movie. Jung-woo's eyes widen. How the hell is he still alive? He thinks, trembling. He tries to speak, but the words stick in his throat. Kang grins. A twisted, bone-chilling smile. His burning eyes lock onto Jung-woo. Stop exaggerating! Kang sneers. This is nothing! I've endured worse than this! Then, with a swift motion, Kang kicks Jung-woo in the gut. Crack! The sound of bones shattering echoes. Jung-woo's body flies backward, skidding across the blood-soaked ground. He's a broken mess, unable to move, unable to scream. Meanwhile, Kang's body begins to regenerate. Flesh mends itself, and the flames die down. Kang turns toward Jung-woo, his gaze deadly. In a low, menacing tone, he says, I'm not gonna kill you just yet. You're gonna sit here and watch as I slaughter every single one of your clan members. With that, Kang stalks off, leaving Jung-woo to watch the carnage unfold. One by one, Kang tears through the guild. A bloodbath of epic proportions. Heads roll, limbs scatter, there's no mercy. Dead bodies litter the ground, and the air reeks of death. And Jung-woo, he's lost it, laughing like a maniac, louder and louder. Hours pass, and it's nearly night. The battlefield is quiet now, save for the sound of Jung-woo's hysterical laughter echoing in the darkness. When the camera pans back, it's pure carnage. Bodies everywhere, blood pooled in rivers. But Jung-woo's eyes are glazed over, his soul seemingly gone. He's just sitting there, laughing like a broken record. On the other hand, Jung-woo was still laughing like a damn madman. Kang and Sang-woo noticed that Jung-woo's eyes were almost white. He was just sitting there, like a soulless corpse, not saying a single word. Jung-woo stared directly at Kang and suddenly questioned what Kang had done to drive Jung-woo this mad. Meanwhile, Jung-woo's thoughts were spinning out of control. He had already accepted that his time was up. He believed he was about to die, but then the thought of dying hit him hard. He snapped, breaking into loud, ugly crying. Inside, his mind was screaming, "He is the great Jung-Yu! How the hell can he die this easily?" Kang stood there, watching the meltdown, looking surprised and slightly confused. Jung-Yu, still caught up in his tantrum, suddenly started spilling his life story, letting it all out. Jung-Yu confessed that he was the illegitimate child of one of Korea's wealthiest men. Jung-Yu revealed how his father, a powerful figure, had a naughty mood one day, played around with a random woman, and boom, Jung-Yu was born. His siblings, they acted like Jung-Yu didn't even exist. All Jung-Yu ever wanted was love, from his mom, from his dad, but nope, not even his mom could stand him. Since he was an illegitimate child, his father had to give him half the family fortune. But then everything changed. The tutorial began, and Jung-Yu gained power. He built his own guild, turned it into one of the top 5 guilds in Korea, and thought he'd rule the world. Before Jung-Yu could keep babbling, Kang's patience snapped. With one clean slash, Kang sliced Jung-Yu's head off. Before Jung-Yu even realized what had happened, his head flew through the air and landed on the ground. Kang let out a sigh and muttered that the damn tape recorder had finally stopped talking. Sang-woo, standing nearby, raised an eyebrow and pointed out that Kang could have at least let Jung-Yu say his last words. Kong rolled his eyes, retorting about villains and their long-ass monologues, stating he didn't care what Jung-Yu had to say and just wanted to get this over with. With that, Kong casually slid his weapon back into his inventory and turned to thank Sang-woo, acknowledging that the plan worked out perfectly. Kang noted how they had killed all the members of the bad guild without even breaking a sweat. Sang-woo laughed, brushing off the thanks, and said Sang-woo just loved hanging out with Kong. Sang-woo got serious for a moment, asking Kong how it felt to finally get his long-awaited revenge. Kang rubbed the back of his head, admitting that he didn't feel much. Kang explained that they deserved to die because they were all criminals. Kang compared it to digging out a huge clump of earwax. Not amazing, but refreshing. Sang-woo stared at Kong, completely speechless, before bursting out laughing, teasing Kong about his horrible comparison. As they continued talking, Sang-woo casually offered Kong the loot from all the dead guild members, mentioning that Sang-woo didn't need it because he was already loaded. Kong froze at the mention of money. It hit Kang like a lightning bolt. Money and power were everything in this world. Even though Kang was stronger than the bad guild, they still gave Kang trouble. Kang made up his mind. Kang would become the strongest, richest, and most powerful person out there. No one would mess with Kang ever again. The scene shifted to night. The dungeon gate slowly disappeared, and Kang stood there with a serious expression. He turned toward Sang-woo, about to ask him something important. Before Kang could get the words out, Sang-woo smirked, volunteering to follow Kang no matter what guild Kang built in the future. Kang blinked, slightly surprised, before letting out a grin, teasing Sang-woo about not even deciding yet if Sang-woo could join. Sang-woo laughed, reaffirming that Sang-woo would stick with Kang because life was way more fun with Kang around. And with that, Kang and Sang-woo walked away, laying the foundation of what could become the craziest and most infamous guild in Korea. In a bad way, of course. And that's where the episode ends. Smash that like goal of 8,000 likes right now. Oh, and don't forget to hit subscribe and drop a red chili sauce in the comments. Goodbye.